were when the Golden State Killer was arrested. You're a moderator on the Zodiac Killer subreddit. You're in search of a new challenge. Enter Solve, the hit podcast that puts you at the center of the investigation. Solve is like no other murder mystery podcast. You'll piece together evidence to track down killers hiding in plain sight. Your cases are waiting for you. New episodes of Solve are available now on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. One crime, 4 suspects. Can you solve it?
Get ready to laugh and learn. I'm Nick Smith.
I am Flamin' Road. I am he, she, we. He cash a check, she make the money, we spend it.
Laugh and Learn is a weekly podcast bringing you the latest headlines, keeping you politically informed, mixed in with a little pop culture. You never know what you're going to hear. Subscribe and listen to Laugh and Learn on the iHeartRadio app or Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
It is a Friday off a great Thursday night NFL game live in Los Angeles. This is the Herd, wherever you may be, however you may be listening. Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, FS1. I am smoking hot off a blazing 5 that was almost burnt the building down. Had Kirk Cousins Monday Night Football, had Russell Wilson last night on fire. 1 hour from now, my blazing 5 picks. I like him again this week. Maybe not as much as last week, but I like him. Joy Taylor is joining me. Joy, how are you?
I'm great. That game was awesome last night.
Seahawks won. You know, it is interesting. I found it fascinating last night. If you give Russell Wilson just a little bit of a running game. Oh, my, he was quite good. If you give him a little bit of defense, not even great, he was quite good, wasn't he? 23 of 28, 200 yards, 2 TDs, no picks, and a quarterback rating of 120. And better than Kyler Murray, who everybody now loves. That's interesting. I'd like to thank Seattle offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer for watching our show apparently last week. NFL fans, and I can be guilty of this, have a very short memory. Patrick Mahomes is the new league king, right? Do you know what Patrick Mahomes was through the first 10 games last year? 6-4. That's it. 6-4. Kansas City's defense in the first 10 games last year was 19th in the league. They needed him to do more. Mahomes throw more, run more, make more plays. And then in the last 6 games, the Chiefs' defense was number 1 in the NFL. And what was his record then? 6-0. And that defense also carried him to the Super Bowl championship. Aaron Rodgers has 1 Super Bowl. It was the year his defense was top 5. When you don't have a defense like Patrick Mahomes early last year, or Aaron Rodgers much of his career, or Russell Wilson last 2 years, you are asking in a league with some of the great athletes in the world to make more plays and take more risks. And guess what? You make more mistakes. Both those quarterbacks last night are fantastic. Russell's better, of course, at this point. They put on a show, but there is this weird belief, and I've seen it with Steph Curry, that, it's a little lucky, Seattle, Marshawn Lynch, Legion of Boom, Pete Carroll carrying Russell Wilson, when I can make an argument. They had a losing record in Seattle under Pete Carroll for 2 years until Russell Wilson arrived. By the way, Seattle's defense wasn't even great last night. I'm not even sure it was good. It was acceptable. The receivers, DK Metcalf, dropped 1 touchdown and probably 2. They weren't great. And oh, by the way, Seattle was once again a penalty-filled mess. They had 8. It's not like he got great support last night. He just got some support last night. And great quarterbacks, they don't need everything. Big Ben's running game at Pittsburgh is not very good right now. They can't run the football. He's 9-0. Aaron Rodgers is 7-2. And Green Bay has 1 trustable big-time wide receiver and can struggle against the run. Russell Wilson doesn't need everything. He just needs something. And last night he got something. He got a running game. Pete Carroll talked about it after the game. This kind of felt passing running game with Carlos Hyde. It kind of felt like the old Seahawks.
It felt like the Seahawks, It felt like the Seahawks that we've all seen over the years. Carlos did a great job tonight. He did exactly what we needed. We needed him to run hard and run tough, knock people backwards, and make extra yards with his juice.
It is interesting when you're different, maybe a little smaller, you're not as cool, not beloved on Twitter, people are reticent to embrace you. And Russell Wilson last night surpassed Peyton Manning for the most wins through 9 years, and he surpassed Tom Brady in the most wins plus playoff wins through 9 years. Statistically, he's way better than Peyton Manning was at this point. But Aaron Rodgers was given the mantle 3 years into the league because Aaron looks like quarterbacks have looked. Mostly a pocket guy. He's got a big arm. He's got a little swag. He's kind of cool. And so he just said, "You're the man." Russell's never had an MVP vote. He plays the position differently. He's kind of small. He runs around more. Now, today you're saying, Colin, quarterbacks run around all the time. They didn't when he came into the league 9 years ago. Kyler Murray would have played baseball. He would not have been drafted. Baker Mayfield would not have been drafted. Johnny Manziel would not have been drafted. Steph Curry and Russell Wilson have changed the game. But Steph isn't internet cool. Those shoes he wore were awful. I mean, I liked them, but I'm not cool. And, whenever the players in the NBA are asked about the guys they respect, Westbrook gets way more respect. He's fashionable, he's cool, he's physical. Steph really isn't. But we play basketball, high school, college, and pro, international, differently because of Steph Curry. And NFL teams now draft the most important position differently because of Russell Wilson. And that's not to say Aaron Rodgers isn't great, but Aaron is kind of your prototypical, got an ego, got a big arm, mostly in the pocket. We love Green Bay. Seattle's a non-traditional power, right? Like, we didn't talk about Seattle before Russell Wilson. But, that's just the reality of it. Russell Wilson's never needed everything. He just needs something. And last night he got a really good running game. And that was something enough. All right, this surprised a lot of us. So Drew Brees gets hurt, banged up ribs. And so we all assumed, I did, well, Taysom Hill will back up now, Jameis Winston. And it comes out this morning that actually Taysom Hill took the starter reps, and he's going to be the starter. And there's going to be no Jameis Winston. And it's going to be all Taysom Hill. I talked about this a couple days ago. I don't think Twitter's real life because I look at resumes. And I think if you've done a good body of work in your life, you get a bad day or a bad pass or a bad sentence or a bad moment. On the internet, you can be a schmuck your entire life, but if you're good on YouTube for 5 minutes, suddenly you're Barack Obama, you're Ronald Reagan, you're a global figure. I'm going to trust the Saints on this. Mickey Loomis may be the best general manager in the league. Go to the last 5 or 6 Saints drafts. They don't whiff on anybody. They hit on almost everybody. So that's one of the brain guys. Sean Payton, he's really good at offense and stuff. He's at the practices. I'm not. I'm going to trust him. I mean, Jameis to me feels like the better fit long term, but maybe for the week, Taysom's the better fit. Ask yourself this, and people say, Colin, you've been down on the Saints for the last couple of years, and I have been, and here's why. I want you to think about this. The New Orleans Saints do not throw the ball down the field. What would the Kansas City Chiefs be if you took away Patrick Mahomes' deep ball? What would the Seattle Seahawks be if you took away Russell Wilson's deep ball? What would Big Ben's career be if you took away the deep ball? The Saints have gone 13-3, 13-3, and 7-2. They don't throw the deep ball. It's insane. That's why I've been down on them. They have 6 completions over 20 yards, being air yards. Green Bay's got 24, 23, 4 times. It's why I have my issues with Green Bay, but in the NFL, you got to get occasional cheap touchdowns. I mean, if you really watch Russell Wilson play, if you watch the Seahawks under Pete Carroll, they pound, suck you in, go over the top. That's the whole game plan. Pound. People come in, suck you in, and Russell throws the best deep ball. Kansas City, by the way, likes to run the football more than you think. They pull you in, you can't double cheat it because of Travis Kelce, and they go the deep ball. New Orleans doesn't throw it. 13-3, 13-3, 7-2. And by the way, favored this weekend by over a field goal. So this is one of those things where I'm just going to trust New Orleans. It doesn't feel like the move I would make. And for the record, long term, I think Jameis is the more franchisee quarterback. But maybe for the week, because none of us have ever seen Taysom Hill start, he's got 18 career passes, not touchdowns, passes in the NFL. It's a division rivalry. Jameis, by the way, has struggled in his career against Atlanta. He has. That's indisputable. 1-5. So maybe Sean Payton, who knows the NFC South really well, said, this week, they don't know what the hell Taysom Hill is. They've never seen him. They don't have any idea. And the element of surprise is our friend. And we think we can hold them down under 25 points, 26 points. But I do think resumes matter. I'll give you an example. The LA Clippers this week traded Landry Shamet. And I really like him. But I was like, okay, well, I saw what Jerry West did in Memphis and Golden State and the Lakers and now the Clippers. And I'm like, all right, he knows more than I do. I'm going to trust him on that. Like, I like Landry Shamet. I like him. Everybody I know likes him. I think the Clippers liked him. But they suddenly traded him. Okay, I'll just trust Jerry West. Your resume matters. Saints, Mickey Loomis, Sean Payton, at least for a week. Now, maybe by halftime Sunday, I think they're crazy people. But for this week, they see something, they know something. I'm not there. I'll trust them. For a week, I trust their decisions. They're smarter than mine. Coming up next, people think Kyler and Russell Wilson are the same. But boy, there's a massive difference. And you really could see it last night. That's coming up, plus Blazing 5 top of next hour.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
I'm Mandy B, former accountant turned podcaster and founder of my own subscription box company. I'm Wheezy, former tech exec, now podcaster, comedy writer, and I make up half of the Horrible Decisions podcast. We combine comedy, raunchiness, all in effort to destigmatize kinks and normalize conversations that are normally taboo, like sex, dating, and relationships. Make sure you tune in this Monday so you can hear conversations like these. He sets up the phone, he bends over in the... Do y'all want to see it? No. We have never suggested cheating, bro. So I'm not going to tell her to cheat on this man. Otherwise, it's great.
Why is future toxic?
Are you serious?
I'm just asking. I don't want no beef on horrible decisions. Maybe that was a horrible decision to ask that question.
Wait. Join us every Monday on the iHeart app, the #1 place for podcasts. And don't forget to search Horrible Decisions. That's WHOREIBLE Decisions on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
So last night's game on Fox, I thought was really, really good and entertaining, wildly entertaining. And I understand the comparisons to Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray. We all do. It's not a surprise. But there is a distinction. And I thought you really saw it last night. When Russell Wilson runs, he's running because it feels like, something's not right here. Let me get a first down and we can start our series over. When Kyler runs, it feels like they broke the huddle and Kyler was going to run. There is a distinction. When Kyler runs, it's a huge component to the offense. When Russell runs, something broke down, somebody ran the wrong route, the coverage is excellent, let me go pick a first down up, and let's start again. That's what it always feels like to me. So Kyler last night only rushed 5 times for 15 yards and no touchdowns, and the Arizona offense did not feel as dynamic. It did not feel as dangerous. It didn't, because he ran less. Russell ran it 10 times for only 42 yards, and it felt like that's the exact number he should run, for about 40 yards, because Seattle's offense always feels like at its best is what it was last night, which is pound the rock, control time of possession, suck the defense up, and then let the best deep ball thrower in the world, Russell, twice deliver a little throw pillow over the top of the defense for a touchdown. That's what it feels like it's designed for out of the huddle. We're just setting them up, we're setting them up for the big trap. And then Russell will run because it's like, our right tackle missed a block, or, my receiver fell around the wrong. He's just running. Okay, let me get a first down, and then we'll start again, and we'll suck him in, and we'll suck him in, and we'll suck him in. It always feels like the deep ball is the end game for Seattle. Whereas the end game for Kyler when they break the huddle is, we're going to annoy you for 4 hours, and many of these will break. And last night, when they didn't have great rushing attempts for Kyler, the offense doesn't feel the same. And by the way, I do not love ball-centric point guards in the NBA. Westbrook drives me nuts, right? I don't love quarterback-dominated or centric teams, meaning the Packers always feel too reliant on Aaron Rodgers. I've defended him there. They butchered this past draft. They didn't get him any playmakers. He needs another playmaker on the perimeter. So I don't love teams. This is why I love what the Kansas City Chiefs are doing, which is the league average is just throw 35, 36 times. Kansas City's down to 30. I feel Houston is totally reliant on Deshaun Watson as a human life preserver. I think Green Bay, this is why I think they butchered the draft. Give Aaron help. Stop this building for the future. Get him players. Okay, he has two backs. He doesn't need a third for the depth chart. He needs a wide receiver and maybe a vertical tight end. So I thought there was a real distinction last night. Kyler didn't run as much. They weren't as dynamic. Russell's not as dynamic running, but it felt perfect for Seattle. And they didn't play great. DK Metcalf dropped a touchdown, or maybe it's not that close. Joy Taylor with the news.
Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
By the way, it's not that Russell can't be spectacular. He can do the high volume thing. But I feel like Arizona always kind of wants high volume Kyler. Seattle's ideally trying to kind of avoid it, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, they want to cut back on Russ having to do everything, including running.
26 throws for Russell, 21 of 26 for 230 yards and 2 touchdown passes. Feels like the perfect Russell game.
Last night was the perfect balance for him.
Yep.
You saw what happens when he has a running game.
Yep.
He doesn't have to do everything. So Cam Newton looked like a perfect fit in New England for the first 3 weeks of the season, but after being away from the team when he tested positive for COVID-19, he admitted that he felt like he was behind.
Ever since, coming back from Corona, to be honest with you, I felt stagnant in my thought process. That I wasn't able to do anything, for that stint while I was off, and it showed. When I did come back, I just felt behind.
A couple people talked about this. He wasn't sick, but he obviously tested positive.
Yeah.
But this might be affecting his play, and he didn't say anything about it until now that it did affect his play, but this makes perfect sense. Why wouldn't taking 2 weeks off in the middle of the season not affect your play?
He didn't have preseason either.
Right.
So he didn't have those 4 and the 2. And also, in fairness to Cam, and I think we both echoed this, they get no cheap touchdowns on this team.
Right.
So this is a little like New Orleans and why I've been out on them to win a Super Bowl. You're asking New England to do 12-play drives. That's just, now, Lamar will pop one. Mahomes pop. The teams I like to win the Super Bowl are teams that can occasionally give me a cheap 78-yard touchdown.
They have this big play
like
potential.
Tampa's got all sorts of that. New England has none of that. So with Cam, you don't get a freebie. Like what he earns every point on the scoreboard. And I think so it's easy to go, they scored 19 points. Yeah, and they work for every one of those.
Well, week 3, the last game before he tested positive, they beat the Raiders 36-20. He was 17 of 28.
Best game by
far. 1 passing touchdown, 1 interception, 27 rushing yards.
Yeah.
Then week 6, they lost to the Broncos. That's when he came back. Then they lost to the 49ers. Then they lost to the Bills. Then they beat the Jets and beat the Ravens in the last 2 weeks. So if you look at just how those games have gone, the game before, he was just getting into rhythm. He's off 2 weeks, and it took a while for him to get back into it. Obviously we're all dealing with this insane pandemic, and because we have sports and people are testing positive and have had to sit out, and we're kind of like not trying to give too much attention to guys being out, but it's the quarterback. It's going to affect how the team plays.
Bill Belichick had a quote. I'm not sure where I read it 10 days ago, but it was an anonymous quote where Belichick had said, "This year is a joke." So it's not. He's just saying with COVID and no preseason, Belichick's very much a rhythm guy and a habit guy. He's like, it's just kind of a joke. So I kind of look at everybody this year, and it's just like I'm not asking for the greatest movies ever produced and the greatest football ever produced.
You have to be a little bit flexible with people this year.
Right.
So the Rams will travel to Tampa to try and stop one of the strongest offenses in the league on Monday night, and Sean McVay understands how difficult that challenge is going to be.
We all know what a great accomplished player Tom is, and I think when you put the weapons around him, he does a great job of getting a bunch of different playmakers involved. When you look at their line, all the skilled players, and then Tom Brady leading the way, It is a nightmare, and they're one of the best offenses for a reason. You see how explosive they are.
The Bucs are 6th in points per game, 14th in total yards per game, and have only allowed 14 sacks this season.
I'll make a prediction. Andrew Whitworth out at left tackle. Jared Goff will be uncomfortable. Bucs win. You know, I bet the Rams 7 times this year. I'm 6-1. The only team I'm good on. When Goff is comfortable, they're really effective. I don't know how they're going to do without Whitworth.
The Rams defense is second fewest in points allowed per game and second fewest in yards allowed per game. So it is kind of a battle of strengths there. I'm with you, though. Whitworth being out is very, very significant, and you're absolutely right. Like, I mean, most quarterbacks, when they have more time and are more comfortable, are better, but some are able to adapt more and make plays and can adjust to not being completely comfortable in the pocket. Jared Goff is not one of them. So we have a great weekend of games, and this is the one that caps them all off, but I'm looking forward to this one. So the Lakers are facing an unusually short offseason this year, and Rob Pelinka says it will be a balancing act to manage LeBron's workload this season.
The great thing about LeBron is he is so methodical and scientific in terms of how he prepares his body and the team of people he works with. That'll just be a balancing act throughout the season of kind of recognizing that there was an extremely short layoff between championship and start of the season and kind of figuring out what's best for LeBron.
LeBron's played 1,525 career games, 1,265 regular season, and 260 postseason. He'll have 10 weeks off before the end of the finals and the start of the next season. The break between the finals and the start of the next season is usually 4 months. So it's obviously significantly shorter. Now they're playing less games this season.
Yes.
But I think we can very reasonably expect the Lakers, and specifically LeBron, to have a little bit of I don't know if you can call it load management, because I think we're kind of retiring that, but it's going to be load management.
Well, you and I came up with a riveting idea, which I think holds it's a legitimate idea. I don't know why the league doesn't take the final 4 teams: Lakers, Miami, Denver, and who did Miami beat in the Eastern Conference Finals?
So long ago.
Celtics,
yeah. Beat the Bucks.
And you give them really easy January.
Yeah.
You either play at home, so you load up on Laker games at home or Laker games against the Clippers, and so those 4 teams, January, and if you have to go, it's Miami flies to Orlando.
Well, I think they're going to already be managing the travel for everyone because they're still trying to figure out how they're going to be doing like the bubble, and they haven't announced like the second half of the season how that's going to be played. So I think the travel and all that is going to be a little bit lighter just to begin with because they want to kind of eliminate that.
Yeah.
But they have to give some sort of break to the teams that were in the bubble the longest. But also, again, like, Miami's in a better situation. They have younger players. LeBron is someone who's very meticulous with his body, as Pelinka said, so they're just going to have to manage it. And like everything that we're doing, just give people a little bit of flexibility. We're living in different times.
Yep, good stuff. Joy Taylor with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Let's bring on Kevin Clark, NFL writer for The Ringer. He has the host of the Slow News Day videocast. One of my favorite sports writers in the country right now. It's Kevin Clark. Let's bring him on. Brought to you by Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing. So first of all, I want to start about the Taysom Hill over Jameis Winston, and I was just telling Joy, there are times in life that the Clippers made a trade last week of Landry Shamet, and I like him, and I'm like, okay, but Jerry West knows what he's doing, and I don't, so I'm going to trust him. And I would start Jameis over Taysom Hill, but I'm like, okay, this is the only team in the league that wins 13 games a year and doesn't throw a deep ball. I'm going to just trust him on this move. It's not the move I would make. What is your thoughts on Taysom Hill over Jameis Winston?
Well, the Saints are trying for a Super Bowl here, and on Sunday they're going to start a guy who has more career tackles than completions. That's all you need to know. And I understand, there's a $16 million cap hit for Taysom Hill next year. Actions speak louder than words. And Sean Payton committed to Taysom Hill long-term by giving him $21 million guaranteed.
Yep.
We sort of always saw this coming. I'm surprised it's happening now. Listen, Jameis Winston is not perfect. He had 30 interceptions last year, and the guys who track dropped interceptions say he should have had the most dropped interceptions as well. So he could have thrown 40 last year if you look at the tape. And so I think that I understand why he would do it. I think that the fact that Sean Payton is doing this, against the Falcons, I think he's trying to show his worth a little bit. I think that this is true of Belichick too. I think when these coaches have these great quarterbacks, they get a little bored. They want to show that they can scheme up things.
Yeah.
And I think Sean Payton is going to take Taysom Hill and he's going to kind of be the mad scientist that he'd like to be week in and week out.
That's a great theory. I love that. So I was saying, ball-centric point guards. I've never been a huge Westbrook fan, although I would pay to watch him and think he's a Hall of Famer, but he can drive me nuts because he's ball-centric, doesn't always play well with others, right? And I think there's a distinction between Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray, and we compare the two, but I saw the distinction last night. And the way I see it is when Russell runs, it's almost like, oh, crap, things have broken down here. Let me get a first down, and let's just reset our downs. When Kyler runs, it's like they left the huddle, and this is what we're going to do, and we're going to annoy the league, and this is who we are. And I do wonder, Arizona, if they could become a little too Kyler Murray-centric, in your opinion.
So, first of all, Kyler Murray has the lowest pressure rate in the NFL right now, and I think that they have a pretty good team around him. I saw a stat last night. They haven't won a game when he rushes for under 20 yards, okay? And that was true last night. And so I start to think that there's certain things that he opens up with the running game, not just for him, but also the running backs and sort of the passing lanes when he starts stretching out that defense. So I get what you're saying as far as just being too Kyler dependent. But I also think that, listen, Kyler is better when he holds on to the ball longer statistically. He loves those deep passes. He's really good at it. He can hit those home runs all the time. And so I think that he has a chance to be kind of what you described with the Russell Westbrook type. I think that Kyler's talent accelerated this team's timeline. I don't think, listen, they were a 3-win team 2 years ago, a 5-win team last year. They've already exceeded both of those. And so I think that they weren't ready to be a top team. I think Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes the last 2 years, when they made their leap, their teams were ready for them to make the leap. I don't think that's the case in Arizona. I think it might take one more year of acquiring talent, of maximizing the scheme. I still feel Kyler Murray has MVP potential. It's just not going to happen this year because the timelines just didn't necessarily match up.
I always feel, I think Steve Young went through this, that Russell Wilson reminds me a little of Steph Curry, that when you play a game differently, you're maybe not as cool, you're not as physically, we're used to 6'4" quarterbacks. We gave the mantle to Aaron Rodgers very quickly, to Peyton Manning very quickly. Steve Young still doesn't get mentioned, despite having stats that would blow you away. And Russell and Steph Curry really have changed the game. Kyler Murray, Johnny Manziel, and Baker get drafted because of Russell. High school basketball, college, and pro look different because of Steph. But there's something about them. They're non-traditional, and so we just struggle to say they're an all-time great. And I watched Russell last night, and I just think to myself, I didn't think Seattle was really great last. I thought the defense was better, but they were penalty choked. They had drops. But is there something to Russell plays it differently, and that just historically, we don't generally embrace different.
Yes, absolutely. I would also say the play calling over the past 5-6 years has put him in a position where everything looks a little weird. I think the defense is doing a great job of winning him the MVP because they're just so historically bad that he has to it looks like he's putting the team on his back every single week. The defense, as you said, got a little better last night. Jamal Adams, I saw, was leading the team in pressures coming into the game last night. That's a really bad sign. Carlos Dunlap did just enough. I think he had 5 pressures in the game, only 1 in the second half, but it ended up being the biggest one. And so, really, the defense needs to be just the basic level of competence. Just make 2 or 3 plays a game, and Russell's not only going to get you the win, he'll get you the MVP. Maybe he'll get you to the Super Bowl. So, yes, I don't think we're used to seeing a quarterback dominate like Russell Wilson. I saw a stat. He has the amount of touchdown passes he has through 10 weeks and the rating he has. The only other guys who've had that in history have won the MVP. And I think that we just aren't used to seeing this sort of domination, so it's all a little strange.
And finally, Coach of the Year for me, I'm going to give it to Jon Gruden. And I tend to think, I've always thought we screw up the MVP award. It's not best stats, it's most valuable. And I don't think Seattle would win 2 games without Russell Wilson. I really don't. Where I think Kansas City could win 7-6 without Mahomes. And I also think Coach of the Year, it doesn't mean your record. I look at what you've done with what you have. The Raiders moved cities. They've had 2 major COVID issues, and they've beaten Breeze, they've beaten Mahomes. To me, Gruden's done more. He's got a general manager who'd never worked in a front office. To me, Gruden's a home run. I give him my coach of the year so far. What say you?
I think there's a couple of guys up there. I think Brian Flores is there, Mike Tomlin is there, Jon Gruden is there, Kevin Stefanski's there. Dak Prescott still has more passing yards than Baker Mayfield, and they might make the playoffs. Okay, that's all you need to know there. But with Jon Gruden, I don't know if I give him the Coach of the Year award, but I give him an apology because he's winning in an old school way. He's married some of the new concepts, whether that's the jet fly sweeps or the RPOs or whatever, but he's just running smash mouth football. And he's gotten Derek Carr to a nice place. You know, I put a lot of emphasis on third down passing because that's when everyone knows you're going to pass. He gets better on every single down by quarterback rating, from first down to second down to third down.
Wow.
And so I think that there's a lot there. Josh Jacobs, it seems to me, was worth the first round pick. Devontae Booker was a nice pickup. So I think what he's been able to do in a short time, I was wrong. I think that, you know, he was making fun of analytics and all that stuff, and I think that rubbed people the wrong way. But he was kind of joking. He was kind of joking. I mean, he obviously understands modern football, but he also understands that old school mentality. So I agree with you. He's doing a heck of a job, and I think he's definitely on the short list right now.
By the way, let me throw this out to you on the Baker thing, because I've not talked a lot of Baker this year, and part of it is I just don't think he's as relevant, is that sometimes this happens culturally, is that you have to pivot. I've worked at broadcasting companies, and all of a sudden, this is a thing, and this is a thing, and it happens fast. And I look at Baker, and I think, 2 years ago, I didn't have Josh Allen, or Lamar Jackson, or Justin Herbert, or Joe Burrow, or Tua. And those are just the young quarterbacks in the AFC. And Derek Carr wasn't this good, because Gruden kind of rebooted him, and Mahomes. And I look at Baker today, and I'm like, well, I don't talk about him, because if I was Cleveland, I would look up and say, good God, in the AFC, I'm not sure he's not the fourth best quarterback in our division. And I think Cleveland has a big decision. And I think sometimes, Kevin, our decisions are based on what is happening around us. This morning, if I'm Cleveland, I would have trouble giving an extension to Baker. I really would. And that's not a shot at him. Would you? How do you feel about him today?
There's some real worrying signs with him. He's 38th in the NFL when under pressure and rating, which is abysmal. You're looking at, those are Dwayne Haskins, Drew Lock type of numbers. And I think that his best case scenario right now is that he becomes Cleveland's Jared Goff, where his value is not being the problem. And he's not the guy we thought would develop 2 years ago when he was having that incredibly efficient rookie season in the last half. So I think that you don't give him a mega deal, because I think that when you give the mega deal, when you give huge money to a guy who's not the problem, that's how you end up in salary cap jail. And so I would give him I guess you'd say a bridge extension, maybe 1 or 2 years, just to see how this develops. But I wouldn't throw a lot of money or weight or commitment behind it. And I would, frankly, even if you give him that money, I would bring in competition next year to see how that shakes out, because I just don't like this trajectory. I've been a huge Baker Mayfield fan. I've defended him on your show many times. But right now, I'm just not seeing a lot where I say, okay, you know, case closed, he's the guy for 5 more years.
Yeah, the pressure stats are alarming. NFL writer for The Ringer, Kevin Clark. As always, a great pleasure to see you, Kevin. Keep it up.
Thanks, Colin.
Coming up next, I think a really interesting game, and Joy, I have said this, last night kicked off, I think, the best NFL weekend. Monday night is Brady and the Bucs against the Rams, so that's a great closing game, and there's all sorts of rivalry games in between. One of them is going to be ugly, and it'll be the best ugly football game of the weekend, and one of the best games of the year, and it'll tell us a lot about the Colts, and more specifically, Aaron Rodgers. That's coming up.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
Time to change your wireless provider. Pure Talk gives you unlimited talk and text and 2 gigs of data, $20 a month. I can save you more if you just grab your mobile phone, dial pound 250 and say my name, Colin Cowherd. Dial pound 250 and say my name. So last night we didn't think would be an ugly game. Last night we thought would be a dynamic game because we had dynamic quarterbacks and not really great defenses. So we thought there'd be a lot of scoring and a lot of big plays, and there were. The ugliest game of the weekend between 2 very capable teams, the Packers and the Colts. Aaron Rodgers is good with a lead. He's good when he's comfortable. He's good in the pocket when it's clean, and he's good when he's comfortable. He will not be this weekend. And if you want me to believe Green Bay can run through the playoffs, prove it to me this weekend, because I don't think they will. Aaron Rodgers this year has 26 touchdowns and 1 interception against everybody not named Tampa. Against Tampa, he has no touchdowns, 2 picks. Why? Because they sacked him a couple times, they hit him 11 times, and his body language changed by the second quarter. That is my knock on Aaron. Patrick Mahomes, his career now is defined by his ability to come from behind. That now defines his arm and his ability to be down big. Patrick Mahomes, 5-0 last year when trailing by 10-plus points. Patrick Mahomes has won 65% of his games when trailing. That is remarkable for a young quarterback. Aaron's a veteran. He's won only 47% of his games if he even ever trails by a 3-0 score. People forget what the Super Bowl was. Patrick Mahomes got hit 7 times. He got sacked 4 times by the 49ers. He had 2 picks and played poorly. Patrick Mahomes was rushed the entire Super Bowl, yet he had a great fourth quarter. I never see that with Aaron. So this weekend is going to be ugly. Russell Wilson, for a long time, defined himself by the ability to come from behind. Tom Brady has always defined himself in the Super Bowls by no touchdowns early, the best touchdowns late. This is going to be an ugly game for Green Bay because only one team has forced more picks than Tampa's defense, the Colts. And the Colts defense is also allowing the lowest passer rating in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers has always been great on a sunny September day in a sports car with the roof down. He is the best, the coolest, the best. Get the SUV, it's raining sideways, it's not the same driver. So this weekend, go in ugly, because it'll be ugly. And there won't be a lot of 11-play drives, and you're going to have to make stuff up, and Aaron's going to get hit, and he's going to get sacked, and he's going to have bad throws. Go in ugly. Ben does it, Russell does it, Mahomes is defined by it, do it. Here's another thing. I want to talk about this because Kevin Clark just did. And so, my rule has always been, don't spend too much time criticizing college athletes. Maybe once you're like a Heisman winner or a star, you've been in college a while, you're like 22, 23, then I'll take a shot if you do something stupid. But, college basketball players, we pick these kids apart. They're like 18. Okay, they're 18. And even in college football, just, Trevor Lawrence now I could criticize. He's been in the spotlight. He's got a bunch of starts. He's a grown-up now. He's got his driver's license. He can go have a beer in college. I could criticize him now. But I was pretty tough on Baker Mayfield. And a lot of times when I do this, I've always said this, my job, I believe, is once you're like your last year in college on, I'm going to have a strong opinion on you. Because first of all, it's more fun. I'm going to take a side. I'm for you, not against you. And so when I am critical of somebody, I never have a problem turning on him. Kyler Murray, I'm like, too short. Game 2, I'm like, okay, I was wrong on that. He's really good. Joe Burrow, I was like, he's Tony Romo. Maybe, and that, by the way, is not bad. But I have no problem going, okay, this is what I saw, and I'm wrong. But with Baker Mayfield, the criticism was harsh, and much of it was because he was so cocky. If he would have been humble, little humility, not grabbing stuff and running from people, it would have been different, obviously. But I haven't talked a lot of Baker Mayfield over the last couple of months. I mean, I talk quarterbacks. That's what I do. I don't talk NFL. I talk quarterbacks. And part of it is I don't want to be mean-spirited. He's just not. The book is in. He is a bad NFL quarterback when under pressure. And the whole damn league's about how do you play in pressure. Everybody's good when the pocket's clean. Case Keenum went 13-3 when he had weapons and the pocket was clean. Everybody can win when the pocket's clean. But under pressure, according to Pro Football Focus, he's the 38th best quarterback in the NFL with a 30 quarterback rating under pressure. The book is in. He's just not that special. He's not as accurate as Tua. He doesn't have the natural gifts of Josh Allen or Justin Herbert. I don't think he's as focused or as athletic as Lamar Jackson. And I'm just talking about the kids. I'm not even talking about Derek Carr, where he's not as accurate. Patrick Mahomes, not as great. And I'm just talking AFC. And the other thing was, I try to contextualize it. He's got great weapons. Their offensive line now has 2 really good tackles and a really good center. They've got above-average wide receivers, and their tight ends, they went and got Austin Hooper, who was good, and David Njoku, and 2 great backs, and an offensive-minded coach. In fact, he's had an offensive-minded coach his entire time. And so my takeaway is, why pick on him? The book is in. He's not special. He's not special arm. He's not special size. He's not special Athletically, accuracy was always his thing, and he's not. Once he's out of a clean pocket, he's bad with accuracy. So, and that's the thing. I'm not saying I'm always right, and when I'm wrong, I'll acknowledge it. But I don't want to pick on him. Like at this point, you say, what about Sam Darnold? I don't think he's been given a fair shot in the NFL. They're awful everywhere. So I don't talk Sam Darnold much anymore because he's been bad. I've said this multiple times. He can't stay healthy. Mono injury. Sam never plays. Like Eli Manning was far less athletic and never got hurt. Sam's way more athletic. He's always hurt. So at some point, Sam Darnold and Carson Wentz, I love you both, but you guys are reckless. Eli Manning knew his limitations. Brady knows his limitations. Peyton knew his limitations. Darnold and Wentz, they play like linebackers. So, but I'll admit when I'm wrong. What fans won't do is ever admit they're wrong. Admit it with Baker. He's just not special. You watch Tua in his first couple games, you're like, oh, damn. Now, we knew he was accurate, but God, he's poised. And you watch Burrow, and you watch Josh Allen, and you see a thing, an arm, a size, a special. I don't see it. In fact, what I see is he unravels immediately, and for the record, 2 words, unravels quickly. Who unravels quickly? People that are highly emotional. Wasn't that my knock on Baker in college? He kind of unraveled in crisis, sometimes with video, he unraveled quickly. You just become a heightened version of what you are in college. That's all pro sports is. It's just the same game, way faster and way harder. I've always said if you're a typist and you type 75 words a minute, and then somebody asks you to type 105 words a minute, you'd have to be pretty special to do it with as many mistakes or as few mistakes. Most people can't go 75 words a minute to 105 words a minute unless they're special. You make more mistakes. That's big. NFL is just college faster. And if you're not special, you're just not good enough. M-Drive Start. 1 scoop every morning. M-Drive Start. Nutrition, protein, makes a delicious chocolate mousse. I didn't have one today. I had one yesterday. M-Drive Start. Check it out. Don't let age define you. Blazing 5 picks coming up next.
On September 17th, 2009, 24-year-old Mitrice Richardson disappeared without a trace in the woods near Malibu, California, and was never seen alive again. I'm Catherine Townsend, host of the podcast Hell and Gone. We're going to try to find out what really happened to Mitrice Richardson. School of Humans and iHeartRadio present Hell and Gone Season 3. Listen to Hell and Gone on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Nearly 600 years after the invention of the printing press, the most important book in the history of the world has arrived.
That might be overstating things.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. It will change your life forever.
Well, that's not necessarily true.
Most scientists agree that Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, is proof that time travel is possible. Because that is the only way to explain how a book this impressive was possibly made.
What?
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, will regrow hair, whiten your teeth, and improve your love life.
That's just not at all right.
Well, the love life part, maybe, if you find someone who thinks smart is sexy.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. Available for pre-order now at StuffYouShouldKnow.com.
Now that is true.
Hello, Earthlings. It's Kesha. I'm so excited to be bringing you my new podcast, Kesha and the Creepies. You may know me from my party jams like We Are Who We Are and TikTok, but it's my curiosity for the unexplainable, the mystical, the magical that drives these conversations with exciting pop culture guests and experts in the occult and all things creepy. Listen and follow Kesha and the Creepies on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. On September 17th, 2009, 24-year-old Mitrice Richardson disappeared without a trace in the woods near Malibu, California, and was never seen alive again. I'm Catherine Townsend, host of the podcast Hell and Gone. We're going to try to find out what really happened to Mitrice Richardson. School of Humans and iHeartRadio present Hell and Gone Season 3. Listen to Hell and Gone on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Here we go. It's hour 2. We're on a Friday. It's great to have you in live in Los Angeles. This is the Herd. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening, we're on Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, and FS1. By the way, on a heater, last week I had Blazing 5 was 4-1. I also, as you know, had said take New England to cover against Baltimore. I also took Kirk Cousins on Monday night, and I also took Russell Wilson last night. So 7-1 in the last 8, so that's good. Now, I will say this, Joy, is that, you know how like when you're driving, I'm driving north after the show today. You go the speed limit, a little over the speed limit.
Right.
But there are places you have to speed down. There's speed traps or, you know, like if you're driving in the country, but then you come into a small town and there's a few overpasses, be very careful. You know, the cops are hiding.
Yeah.
And you slow down.
Yeah, yes.
So as I go north for about an hour today and I'll drive a little over the speed limit, but then I'll get into like Ventura and I'll be like, okay, slow down a little, overpasses. It's the same. I did not bet this week as much as I did last week. I don't like the numbers as much this week. In fact, the number I like the most is not as good today as it was Monday, and I already bet it. I make my bets often on Monday, a couple of them, because the number's better.
So don't put any mortgages down.
I'm just saying, this is not, and I have buddies who do this for a living, this is not a great week. I do believe I have the 5 best bets. And this is what I do. You can ask Jon Gruden. This is all week. I do this. Every day I call him and say, get rid of this game. These are the 5 best.
There's a lot of great games, not a lot of great numbers.
Let's just say this, right? Today, my Blazing 5 is a small town with an overpass, and there's a cop on the bridge looking at you. So just slow down a little this week on your money spent.
You can make it through safely. Just don't go crazy.
Yeah. Last week, I literally just told my wife, house may be up for sale, or we'll buy another one. I threw everything at it. All right, here we go. All of our odds provided by Fox Bet.
That's a hot one. Let's blaze it up. Fire it up. It's Colin's Blazing 5. Falcons at Saints.
Okay, the numbers changing rapidly. When we did this segment, this morning it was 4.5 Atlanta. I would take the Falcons here. First of all, now I think the Saints with Taysom Hill are kind of experimenting at quarterback. I do not like that. Remember, the Falcons are coming off a bye with extra time, and Raheem Morris is not only 3-1, but he's trying to win the head coaching job. And in this division, he thinks he can get to a wild card spot. He may be wrong. We know Atlanta since week 6. They can move the ball. We don't question that. But they've allowed fewer than 30 points in 5 straight games. Again, this is a coaching staff coaching for million-dollar contracts here. Raheem Morris wants his second head coaching job. And I feel like the Saints are kind of experimenting more than I would be comfortable with. We have an upset or two every week in the league. I'm going to take the Falcons with the upset win, 28-27 here.
Eagles and Browns.
Like it. I love it. Philadelphia is absolutely the play here, plus 3.5. Listen, Philadelphia's head coach, their quarterback, and their practice habits are all under question in Philadelphia, the sports talk capital of the country. They're getting pulverized. So Philadelphia is a totally focused week. And by the way, they lost to the Giants. But they didn't commit a turnover, and that defense is way better than Cleveland's. The Browns have scored 10 or fewer points in 4 games this year. Only the Jets have fewer. Cleveland struggles when they face better defensive lines because Baker struggles under pressure. That is no longer just an opinion. That is a fact. I think Philadelphia, Wentz, Doug Peterson, practice habits better, beats the Browns 24-20.
Packers at Colts.
I'll take the Colts minus 2.5. Wise guys are split on this, but I get the Colts team that has extra prep time. They played on Thursday. I like that. But here's the game in a nutshell. Phillip Rivers. The Packers defense has only created 7 turnovers this year. Second fewest in the league. What does it mean? Phillip Rivers is comfortable. Phillip Rivers sacked only 8 times this year. Fewest in the league. Phillip Rivers is comfortable. Rivers 100-plus passer rating, 3 or 4 games. Rivers is comfortable. The Colts defense will not make life comfortable for Aaron Rodgers. Number 1 in total D, lowest opposing passer rating. What does this game mean? Look at the numbers for Phillip Rivers. He's not getting hit. He's not getting rushed. He's got a running game. The Packers don't take the ball away, meaning they don't speed the game up for you. A comfortable Phillip Rivers beats an uncomfortable Aaron Rodgers. Colts win 24-20.
Chiefs and Raiders.
Loved this number on Monday. It was Kansas City minus 6.5. It's now Kansas City minus 8.5. I will still take it. A little lower number. Pull the number, the money you put in. But I'm going to take Kansas City minus 8.5. Why? Andy Reid is 18-3 off a bye. That's better than Belichick. It's the best in the NFL by far. So I get a team off a bye that got beat. It's only lost the last time they played the Raiders. Their offense is not only good, 32 a game, but that's not considering the Raiders' defense is below average. The Raiders have only sacked the quarterback 11 times this year. Outside of Max Crosby, who we had on this week, they have no pass rush. So I get a healthy, well-coached team with extra time. There's a major COVID issue right now with the Raiders for the second time this year. I'm going to take the Chiefs by 10. It was my favorite play of the week on Monday. Probably my second favorite play, 36-26 Chiefs.
Rams and Buccaneers.
Again, the number was better earlier in the week, but I'm going to take Tampa Bay minus 4.5. Something to consider. I've bet 7 Ram games this year. I'm 6-1. It's the team I feel best about, and I've had a very simple solution. Jared Goff is an NFL quarterback I like. I think he's a B to a B+. But when he's uncomfortable, he's not the same quarterback. 4-0 at home. Only 2-3 on the road. Andrew Whitworth, knee on the IR. Watch out, because this Bucs defense, second most sacks, number 1 rushing defense, will force Jared Goff to throw with a back-up left tackle. And Andrew Whitworth is probably a top 3 tackle in the NFL. With Ronnie Stanley out, he may be the best left tackle or second best left tackle. Also something to consider here. If the Saints lose on Sunday with Taysom Hill, the Buccaneers watch that game and have extra motivation on Monday to win and make up a game as Drew Brees is out. I like Brady to beat the Rams 28-23. It'll be close to the number, which was better earlier in the week. For more on my Blazing 5 picks, check out the Fox Bet social platforms. So you have to be, and if people say you're just making excuses, no. I'm telling you where the speed traps are. I'm telling you I like Atlanta the dog, Philadelphia the dog, and then I like the favored Colts, the favored Chiefs, and the favored Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Lines, COVID this year has been, there's a Myles Garrett story this morning. When I woke up, I'm driving to work, I come to Fox, and all of a sudden I look up on the screen behind me, and there's a Myles Garrett COVID story. If Myles Garrett doesn't play, Carson Wentz is going to have another half second to throw for 3 hours. That's a difference in the NFL between winning and losing a game. So I said this earlier. My coach of the year today in the NFL would be Jon Gruden, and there's been a lot of good coaches. I think what Brian Flores is doing is remarkable. But first of all, they had to move. In the history of the NFL, teams that move are usually garbage their first year. When the Rams moved to LA, remember that first year? Unwatchable. Secondly, they've had 2 major COVID outbreaks, one this week. And yet, they've beaten Drew Brees and the Saints handily, and they've beaten the Kansas City Chiefs. I've always felt that even the NFL, especially with like a college basketball or baseball or NBA, certain teams winning makes it better. And obviously when the Lakers and LeBron win, it's better for the NBA. If Notre Dame or Ohio State wins in college football, USC, it's better. Yankees in baseball, Dodgers, Cubs, whatever. But I do think the Raiders are one of 7 or 8 brands in the NFL that are really good. I think the Bears have one, the Cowboys, the Packers, the Steelers. But I also believe Jon Gruden, like Mike Tomlin, is just good for the league. The more he talks, the better it is. He's got this alpha male thing going, and I like it. But what's really interesting about Gruden, he was out of the league for 10 years, and I was a total cynic. And then he hired Mike Mayock, who'd never been a GM, never worked in a front office. I was a total cynic. But what's the best thing about Jon Gruden, I don't know about you, but to people that make excuses drive you nuts. They do with me. It's a pet peeve. You can't have any excuses. Jon Gruden has just ended your excuses in Jacksonville, in Detroit, in Atlanta, in Houston. He gets a team. He's been out of the league for 10 years. He hires a GM who's a TV analyst. They have to move. They are, next to Jacksonville, the poorest revenue team in the league. They have no fans, Raider Nation, which has always been, it's an intimidating crowd. And they are loaded on offense. They beat Mahomes and Drew Brees. No more excuses. That's what do you do as coach of the year with what you have? Sean McDermott didn't have to move. Brian Flores didn't have to move. When you have to move, 2 major COVID outbreaks, listen, Vegas is different. The league is a bunch of 26-year-old men. They're alphas. Vegas is not Buffalo, okay? It's a little tougher there. It is tougher to win in Miami. I mean, it's Miami. It's a port city. There's a lot to do. Outside of Applebee's, Green Bay gets very lonely in the fall. And so you're moving a team, not just the team, you're moving them to Vegas. You got a GM you've never had. He wasn't the GM you initially inherited. They've nailed, I mean, they've had some whiffs, but when they've had whiffs in the draft, I don't need to name them, they've moved off them. They drafted one kid, he couldn't handle Vegas. They moved him out of town. But when I look at it, all the excuses for Detroit and Atlanta and the Chargers and Jacksonville, I'm not interested. I'm not interested in your excuses. Because Gruden's winning and Mayock's winning and the Raiders are winning and they should not be winning and the league is better for it. And you know what? Urban Meyer has talked about this before. Is that when and Urban Meyer 4 times went to a college team and won very next year. Urban says a lot of times coaches go to a new program and they dog cuss the guys they didn't recruit. Those are not my guys. And Urban's like, no, they are your guys. You're the coach of Bowling Green. Those juniors and seniors, those are your guys, even though you didn't recruit them. That is now your family. It's like stepkids. They're my family. And Derek Carr may not be the quarterback that Jon Gruden would have drafted. But when Jon Gruden got to Oakland, Derek Carr, his record was 6-9. He had 22 DDs, 13 picks, and a quarterback rating of 86. It has gone up every year, and he now defends him publicly. 3 straight years. Now his quarterback rating today is 107, 16 TDs, 2 picks. So when you go to a new team, there's a bunch of guys that you probably wouldn't have drafted, acquired, traded for, or recruited. But they are your players. And Derek Carr today is a borderline Pro Bowler. Because Jon Gruden didn't whine. Didn't say not my guys. He's like, this is my guy. And I'm going to make this guy the best he's ever been. And this is the best Derek Carr has ever been. And it's really impressive. So I don't want to hear excuses. We can't hold a lead. That is a you problem. Because the Raiders don't have a good defense either, and every week, Joey and I are like, they're boring, but they keep winning games. Mahomes, Breeze, they keep winning them. Coming up next, Michael Robinson, NFL Network Super Bowl champ, former Niner and Seahawk, Eric Mangini to Warren Moon. We are less than halfway through on a Friday.
Want more Herd? The Herd streams 24 hours a day, 7 days a week within the iHeartRadio app. Search Herd to listen live or on demand whenever you'd like.
Nearly 600 years after the invention of the printing press, the most important book in the history of the world has arrived.
That might be overstating things.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. It will change your life forever.
Well, that's not necessarily true.
Most scientists agree that Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, is proof that time travel is possible. Because that is the only way to explain how a book this impressive was possibly made.
What?
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, will regrow hair, whiten your teeth, and improve your love life.
That's just not at all right.
Well, the love life part, maybe, if you find someone who thinks smart is sexy.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. Available for pre-order now at StuffYouShouldKnow.com.
Now that is true.
I'm Mandy B, former accountant turned podcaster and founder of my own subscription box company. I'm Wheezy, former tech exec, now podcaster, comedy writer, and I make up half of the Horrible Decisions podcast. We combine comedy, raunchiness, all in effort to destigmatize kinks and normalize conversations that are normally taboo, like sex, dating, and relationships. Make sure you tune in this Monday so you can hear conversations like these. He sets up the phone, he bends over in the... Do y'all want to see it? No. We have never suggested cheating, bro. So I'm not going to tell her to cheat on this man. Otherwise, it's great.
Why is future toxic?
Are you serious?
asking. I don't want no beef on horrible decisions. Maybe that was a horrible decision to ask that question.
Wait. Join us every Monday on the iHeart app, the #1 place for podcasts. And don't forget to search Horrible Decisions. That's WHOREIBLE Decisions on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
Tomorrow on Fox, it's a battle of Big 12 title contenders as K-State takes on Iowa State at 4 Eastern. Then Arizona and Washington clash in Pac-12 action at 8 Eastern. College football tomorrow beginning at 4 Eastern on Fox and the Fox Sports app.
So Iowa State has a coach, Matt Campbell, who is like considered the next big star in coaching. People have suggested there's NFL jobs. Nobody knew who Matt Rule was 3 years ago. So Matt Campbell at Iowa State, when you watch them play, they're considered, they've got the next star coach. The Urban Meyer at Utah. Everybody's talking about him. He's going to have a lot of options, so we'll see how that. I'll be interested to see because he's a great, clever young coach. So Michael Robinson, interesting, goes to Penn State, and Michael is one of these guys that is so talented. He quarterback, he was wide receiver, he was running back, and he goes and plays for the Seahawks for 4 years and the Niners for 4. So they were big rivals at the time. He went to a Pro Bowl. He won a Super Bowl. And it's interesting, we're talking about Taysom Hill, who is the Swiss Army knife of the NFL now. Taysom does a little bit of everything, and Michael Robinson, the former NFL fullback, and now with the NFL Network, is now joining us live. So let's start with Taysom Hill. It's not easy. So at Penn State, you know, it's almost like, Michael, you're so talented, you can play a bunch of different positions. The downside is, you feel like your whole career is, does anybody really love me, or they all just like me? So with Taysom Hill, how hard is it going to be from gadget guy and multiple guy to, hey, it's an NFL game, you're starting? How hard was it for you?
Yes, I think it's going to be a little bit difficult for Taysom. I mean, it wasn't that difficult for me because I came in and I played running back. I actually, when in 2010, when we beat the Saints in the playoffs, that beat the Beastquake game and all of those types of things. After the game, I went up to Coach Sean Payton and he looked me in the eyes. He said, "Hey, bro, I wanted you. You're one of the guys that had a special skill set." So it's not surprising that Taysom Hill is doing well with the New Orleans Saints. To me, the surprise was that they paid him $10 million a season earlier, before the season started. To me, that was the surprise because I didn't think that he had thrown enough passes or shown enough that he could just be a every down quarterback in the National Football League. So that surprised me that they signed him for that money. But once they signed him, it wasn't a surprise that they called him the starting quarterback this week. He's been there the longest. He has the most continuity with all the receivers and things like that, and he knows the system. And guess what? He does not turn the ball over, or at least yet.
Yeah, it is interesting because when I think of quarterback, I think reps, and you, Michael, and Taysom, you don't get those reps. I mean, if you're a backup quarterback, you don't get reps in the NFL during practice. How many, I mean, like Taysom this year, is he getting any first-team reps outside of this week at all?
Maybe some on a Saturday walkthrough. So Coach Payton and the Saints are going through emergency situations where he may have to go in at quarterback. That may be the only time. But when you're playing a position like Taysom Hill, you have to be very observant at practice because, again, you may be – I was the same thing as Taysom. I was practicing special teams, and I was a personal protector on punt while the quarterbacks and wide receivers are doing something on the other field. So you're missing out on stuff. So you have to be very observant. You have to be very like a sponge and take everything in. But I think Taysom will do well just simply because you have the right play caller. You have Sean Payton. I don't think he's going to call anything that this kid can't do.
So I'm a huge Russell Wilson fan, but I do think Russell's at his best, and I think he's as good a football player as the world has, but I think he's at his best when you ask him to throw 26 times, he completes 21, and I always felt Russell runs to just get a first down and reboot the downs. Kyler runs, it is part of the mission out of the huddle. And so when I watched him last night, and you know Russell very well, you were in Seattle, how does he view running? How did you feel Russell ran when you were there? Were they designed, or was it just like, okay, something broke down, let me get a first down?
You talk about me knowing Russell. Let me tell you something. That kid, Russell Wilson, was at the state championship my senior year. He was a 7th grader. We're from the same area, so I know Russell very, very well. And I look at Russell. He's not a Cam Newton or a Lamar Jackson. He is a passer with scrambling ability. So it's different. Lamar Jackson's a runner. okay, that has a special ability to throw the football. Cam Newton, to me, is a runner. Okay, he's a little bit different of a runner, but he's a runner who can throw the football. Kyler Murray may be the fastest or the quickest to accelerate in the National Football League. And so, to me, when Kyler runs the football, it's just a little bit different. As you can see on the video right here, Russell only runs when he has to.
Yeah.
And he's running just to move the sticks. Unless it's in the fourth quarter, he's running to win the football game.
Yeah. It is. Kyler's really interesting. Ask yourself this: if you were a senior now at Penn State, with Kyler's success, and because I think Russell got Kyler drafted, but the bottom line, 10 years ago, guys like you came out and they're like, "Oh, come on, I mean, there's a bunch of stuff."
It's crazy.
Would you be seriously? I go back to your last year, you quarterbacked 12 games for Penn State. If you came out today, have you ever thought, I'd be a first-round quarterback?
Man, who you telling, man? I think about it damn near every day, bro. Are you kidding me? The money that the quarterbacks are making right now, of course I think about that. I honestly think I was 10 to 15 years too early.
Yeah.
You think about the year that I was coming out. I mean, the 4 BCS winners, myself, Troy Smith, Pat White, and DJ Shockley. And I think, and Vince Young. And Vince Young was the only one of these movement types of quarterbacks in that class to get an opportunity to play the quarterback position. I just think the NFL is starting to catch up with college, Colin. That's what it is. The NFL game is changing right before our eyes.
So, Tua, Burrow, Justin Herbert, they all work. And I said, I was really tough on Baker Mayfield when he came out of college. I didn't like the video with police. I thought, I didn't like it. I just said, hey, man, that's not my franchise quarterback. I'm not saying you have to be a choir boy, but I'm out on that. I was out on Johnny Manziel. He was too cocky. But now I've kind of peeled off Baker, and my takeaway is, listen, sometimes the world around you changes. Okay, like you may not want to change, but I look at Tua and Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, and I watch Baker and I'm like, oh, bro, he ain't good enough. Like, the league's too good. Like, in 2-3 years, the league's better. I'm just talking about AFC quarterbacks. And it's not a shot at Baker. But today, if I'm Cleveland, I got eyes. He's the 4th best quarterback in his division. Is he not? Like, I just look at Baker and I think to myself, I'm done picking on him because the world changed. He had a ceiling. He's hit it. I've seen it. I'm kind of out in it. Is that fair?
Man, Colin, stop picking on Baker, man. Baker gonna tweet you something, man. He gonna send a video your way, man. But look, when Baker has to go through 2 or 3 reads and he has to reset his feet, he's just below average quarterback. When he knows where he's going with the football and he has play action involved, he is above average quarterback. I don't think Baker Mayfield was ever elite, so to speak. And I think this year he's finally got with a system that works. Kevin Stefanski, he has this offense rocking, and it's based off of the run game. And see, I look at Baker Mayfield, he's not a top dog. And when I say that, he's not the show or the main focal point of an offense. He's just complimentary. And that's okay. That's okay to play complimentary football as the quarterback of your team. You just have to understand that and just live in that role. And I think Baker has to choose what he wants to be. Does he want to be a tough guy, right, and say things and walk around like I'm dangerous and this, that, and the third? Or do you want to be just a franchise quarterback and do the right things on and off the field and be a leader of men? Baker has to make a decision.
Yeah, like sometimes people say Russell Wilson's not cool, and I admit he came out with a fragrance this week that smells like love. It's not my thing, man. I mean, I love the guy, but it's just not my thing. But there is, people pick on me for this. Even Joy rolls her eyes, is that there is something to be said about being presidential as a president and being, I call it quarterbackial as a quarterback. Sometimes you can't be the funniest guy, the glibbest guy. Sometimes you got to play it straight. Like, did you feel that with Russell Wilson?
Absolutely so. I'll tell you a quick story. In 2012, his rookie year, right after his rookie year, he came to my football camp here in Richmond, Virginia. All of the leaders of our team was there. We had a whole bunch of people there. And his old high school, collegiate high school, he had some of his old guys in town. And he brought a limo to the club that night, Colin, okay? He wore a Carlton Banks sports jacket. And he had a whole bunch of Carlton Bankses with him, okay? It was all good. And we were like, dang, man, Russell, he's kind of square. But he's our square. And it was powerful. And I remember pulling Russell to the side. He didn't drink. He didn't do anything. And I'm like, Russell, you gained the entire locker room today. And then we go on to win the Super Bowl the next season. playing the quarterback position is part public relations. You got to be able to hang out with everybody. You got to be able to speak to everybody. You got to be able to lead everybody on the football team. And I think Russell wasn't that at first, but he definitely, as you can see on the screen, he's definitely grew into that role.
Well, you're a really talented guy. NFL Network analyst tonight, NFL Total Access at 7 Eastern. We've never had you on before. What a pleasure for us. Good Morning Football, our buddies over there, they do a great job on that show. Say hi to the gang over there, and great having you on. Full of insight, man. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Anytime, brother. Anytime.
All right, Michael Robinson, who, by the way, quarterback at Penn State, wide receiver. Then he went to the NFL. They used him as a fullback. He made a Pro Bowl. He's Taysom Hill. And I'll say it again. Michael comes out today. He gets drafted first or second round. Like, that's the reality. Steph Curry's gotten a lot of dudes drafted. I mean, you watch that draft the other night. They're like, he's not very physical. He can't do this. He can shoot. Boom, first round. Like, that's what it is now. Steph Curry got dudes drafted, and I think Russell's done the same thing. Joy Taylor with the news.
Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
Oh, your guy Sam Darnold will miss his 4th game of the season on Sunday.
You know what they're doing.
Yes. Well, he's dealing with a lingering shoulder injury. At 0-9, the Jets will be in position to draft another top quarterback prospect next year, and former Jets quarterback Mark Sanchez agrees it's time for Darnold to think about moving on.
Because of the way things have transpired, he's got to make some serious decisions about the longevity of his career and whether or not playing the rest of this year is even worth it if it's in his best interest. You know, if this season is at a loss, like it looks like already, it's not like they're going to turn around and make a playoff run. So now you get into these tough decisions as a competitor, thinking, man, maybe my time's up here, and that's okay, and maybe it's best for both sides to move on.
Yeah, this has not been overall a great season for him in 6 games, 58.6 completion percentage, 1,045 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions.
And hurt all the time.
So, obviously, it's the organization's decision, ultimately, if they're going to move on from him.
They should, to protect themselves, they should move on and get a first or a second round pick for Sam Darnold. By the way, the Jets probably, there's an old saying in divorces. Whoever wants the divorce usually feels a little guilty for it deep down. The Jets probably feel a little guilty that they never provided him with stuff. They would probably rather him go to a good offensive line. I mean, seriously, I do think they're like, we never gave this kid a shot. It'd be one thing if the guy was like Jay Cutler, after a while people were like, please leave our team. I think there's a little bit of Jets guilt, like, listen, we're going to restart it over. We got a GM we like, and we just think it's better to move. But I do think, you know, Belichick liked Jimmy Garoppolo. He only took a second-round pick, and he sent him to a good coach.
Yeah, I don't think there's any animosity towards Sam Darnold, even though the fact that he's been injured. But I'm with you, and this is what Mark Sanchez is talking about. There's really not a big motivation to push to come back through this injury this year. You could possibly get re-injured or injure it for longer, and then that's hurting your trade status. So you really just need to make a decision about what is the future of the franchise. And I'm sure they're having these conversations at this point because the season is lost.
Yeah.
But I do think that Sam Darnold will end up somewhere where we'll get to see him play at a high level again. It's just sometimes situations do not work out, and the Jets have, to your point, done a terrible job of putting people around him.
Yeah.
So the Bengals didn't pass up the chance to draft Joe Burrow first overall this year, and Washington took Chase Young with the second pick. But if Cincinnati had decided to take Chase Young instead, Ron Rivera had his eye on Joe Burrow. He said the only other option we felt was viable for us was Burrow, and obviously he was taken by Cincinnati. We think Joe is the full package. We think Chase is the full package. Depending on what Cincinnati did, that's what we were going to do. The opposite, we didn't think we would lose out either way.
I like that he's honest about that. Chase Young was easily the best defensive guy in there.
Chase Young was the for sure best player in this draft. But you can't always draft the best player when you have a position of need, and especially if that position of need is a quarterback.
Yeah.
So, yes, I mean, this makes sense. And they still need a quarterback. So I'm sure if they were in that position, they would have taken Joe Burrow. The current NFL draft order is Jets, Jags, Washington, Cowboys, Chargers, the Dolphins pick from the Texans at 6, Bengals, Giants, Panthers, and Falcons.
You know what's really great about this? Is that once you get a quarterback, it kind of gives you hope. I talked a couple days ago, we talked about this, and I went and made 2 calls to scouts People are really in on Mac Jones, and they're really in on Kyle Trask. And I watched Kyle Trask play for 2 or 3 years at Florida, and I was always hit and miss. But my guys are like, listen, if he gets the right offensive coach, he's a big, strong kid who can spin it and move a little. It's like he's going to work in the NFL.
I also like how the draft has evolved, and it's always really bothered me because people would hoard up draft picks.
Yeah.
I have 20 draft picks. Like, okay, that's great, but what are you going to do with those draft picks? And if they don't work, are you going to not be attached to it? And because we have no patience at the quarterback position, which could go either way. Some guys just need a little bit more time to develop. Sometimes we swing too far in the other direction.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, that's where we are. So even if you do need a quarterback in this draft, like Washington does, and they took Chase Young last year, you can take a quarterback again next year. Like, they can take a quarterback this year. They take Kyle Trask. He doesn't pan out. Take another one next year. Trade him. Like, I'm all for that kind of movement if you don't think that it's the right guy. Now, sometimes it's the organization, sometimes it's the wrong coach, the wrong system, whatever. But I really think what happened with Kyler Murray changed the game. Like, everyone wasn't sure about Josh Rosen, and he clearly didn't get the time he would normally get in the league to develop. But they made the right decision.
Yeah.
Speaking of Kyler Murray, the Seahawks defense didn't get to Kyler Murray the first time they played this season, but 3 sacks and 7 hits on him last night. One of them actually he landed on his shoulder and appeared to be in a lot of pain on the sidelines, but he is not making any excuses for the loss.
They definitely played for me, in certain situations, but I think, like I said, put up 21, had a chance to win the game at the end. But throughout the game, man, we started off slow, and then we just kept shooting ourselves in the foot.
It was a tale of two halves yesterday. The first half was really slow, not as dynamic as we thought it was going to be, and then the second half, they got going. You could tell he was in a lot of pain.
Well, they kept showing him rubbing it.
Yeah, putting heat on it. After the halftime break, he looked completely different.
Yeah.
But they had 10 penalties for 115
Oh, God,
yards.
the whole game. It's like there was like 3, it was 18 penalties. It wore me. It was a great game.
Now, Seattle had quite a bit of penalties too, but they were able to overcome that. The Cardinals did not. It's the most penalty yards by an Arizona team since Week 16 in 2016 against Green Bay, where they had 119 yards of penalties. It got a little bit ridiculous, and like you can't play a team like Seattle and Russell Wilson and have that many penalties in a primetime game and expect to win. But they were right there, but just how about Dunlap, huh? That worked out well.
Oh boy, he was easily their best defensive lineman. Easily.
Amazing.
Yeah. Well, he's always been long and athletic, and he moves well. So joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Mangini's got 3 Super Bowl rings with the Patriots. He joins us next.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
You know exactly where you were when the Golden State Killer was arrested. You still pay for cable to get Lifetime. You're a moderator on the Zodiac Killer subreddit. You're basically a seasoned detective, and you're in search of a new challenge. Enter Solve, the hit podcast that puts you at the center of the investigation. Each week on Solve, you will untangle a case that has pushed detectives to their limits. Solve is like no other murder mystery podcast. You'll piece together evidence from interrogations, crime scenes, and witness testimony to track down killers hiding in plain sight. Your cases are waiting for you. New episodes of Solve are available now on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. 1 crime, 4 suspects. Can you solve it?
Get ready to laugh and learn. I'm Nick Smith.
I am Flame Monroe. I am he, she, we. He cash a check, she make the money, we spend it.
Laugh and Learn is a weekly podcast bringing you the latest headlines.
The infighting within the LGBT community is ridiculous. Baby, let me tell you about that rainbow in the front. Check the back of it. Potholes, thunderstorms, gunshots, all that.
Keeping you politically informed.
Because that's what we do. We wait till the presidency, but we don't think about all the steps that it takes to get to the presidency, which is congressmen and senators and judges and people to put in place to think like us and look like us.
Mixed in with a little pop culture.
They ain't went to no Ice Cube. Understand, Ice Cube ain't even got that much juice. He ain't got that much power. This ain't Bad Boys in the Hood. He ain't Doughboy.
You never know what you're gonna hear.
Don't I look like Beyonce mom? mama. Don't I look like Beyonce mama?
Subscribe and listen to Laugh and Learn on the iHeartRadio app or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts.
He's got 3 Super Bowl rings with the Patriots, Browns, Jets, too. He's my friend, Fox Sports NFL analyst Eric Mangini joins us often on Friday for good introspection on this entire league, and I want him to join me now live. So, we were just talking, I've said before, I said this once to Jimmy Johnson, there's all running quarterbacks work, they just don't last. And Kyler Murray got dinged up a little last night. When you watch Kyler Murray, and it's spectacular, I mean, it's my favorite thing to watch in the league. What do you make of him? They're very Kyler-centric in their offense. Like, they run as a play. Out of the huddle, they're running. What do you make of it?
Yeah, look, you can do that, and we've seen a lot with guys where you're putting a ton of pressure on, whether it's Russell Wilson or Lamar Jackson or take your pick. I mean, Kyler's got 10 rushing touchdowns. He's the second rusher on the leading rusher on the team, and when you expect these guys to carry the load week in and week out, it gets to the point where you're gonna run into some big problems, and you don't have a second pitch, and that's a real issue. You can't be that unbalanced and expect a guy to be Superman week in and week out, because there's going to be weeks where he just doesn't have it like that.
Well, Russell Wilson feels like he runs differently. He feels like he runs to just get a first down and go back to their original set of downs, and it's not running by design. It's running because something didn't work. When you watch him run, does it feel different?
Yeah, it feels totally different. With him, it's more scramble to throw, and then if the window's there, he's going to take the window and pick up the yards that are there from a rushing perspective. There's not a ton of quarterback-driven runs with him where he really has to make that decision. It's sprinkled in here and there, but that's not driving the offense. And to me, that's much more the approach that you have to have if you're going to have longevity. And you and I were talking about this off the air. Why pay your left tackle all that money if you're going to expose your quarterback to getting hit 15 to 20 times with quarterback-driven runs? And I think Russell Wilson is dangerous because he will take off, but he's also dangerous because he can scramble around to throw it down the field.
Yeah. By the way, Taysom Hill is going to start over Jameis Winston. I'm surprised by it. He's only thrown 18 career passes in the league. Are you?
Yeah, yes and no. You hear the comments that come out in terms of comparisons between him and Steve Young and the amount of praise that he has. And then I went back and looked at his contract. He's guaranteed $20 million between this year and next year. It's next year being $16 million. When you're paying a guy $16 million, that's not a role player. There's an expectation that he's going to assume a much bigger part of that offense. And I think that the thought process has always been he could be the replacement for Drew Brees. And now you get this opportunity to really check to see whether or not you're right on this. You almost have to take it. And I think they truly believe that he can fill that role. Now, he's thrown 18 balls. He's got 1 interception. So he's thrown less than 1% of the amount of balls that Jameis Winston's thrown. So there's a gigantic leap of faith happening here as well.
Yeah. So you, before the season, I was not on board with this, Eric. You picked the Raiders as your sleeper team, and I was a cynic when Gruden came. I said he's a great TV personality. You can't leave Silicon Valley for a decade and then come back and be Mark Zuckerberg. There's no way. I'm wrong. I was wrong on Mayock. I've been wrong on everything. I imagine you still like the Raiders.
I do. I picked my 2 teams were the Raiders and the Falcons, and look, the Falcons are making a little bit of a push here, and they've missed a few great opportunities early. But the same thing with the Raiders. There's a grittiness to this team that I've always liked, and I'm as big a Derek Carr fan as I think you are, and he's playing well. Now, that being said, remember last year we were having this conversation about the Raiders where John was, a potential coach of the year, and then what was it? They lost 5 out of their last 6,
Yep. They struggled,
something like that. And with that grittiness and with that physical type play that they've had, there comes some wear and tear. So it's going to be interesting to watch them down the stretch. And hey, if they can sweep Kansas City, that to me alone is impressive enough and gets in the coach of the year conversation.
Yeah. So I think there's a pretty clear Aaron Rodgers, when he's comfortable and with a lead, he is great. When you hit him a few times, even his body language changes. This will be the second defense this year, Tampa the first, where he's going to get hit. He's going to get banged around. The defensive coordinator on the Colts. Is it a great defense or a well-schemed defense? What is Aaron Rodgers going to face this weekend against the Colts in Indy?
Yeah, so Matt Eberflus was a guy that I hired out of college when I was in Cleveland. Really, really bright guy. Can bring multiple looks. Can disguise defenses. Can do all those things. But when he went to Dallas, he got more comfortable with being stationary, less moving parts. Really, really sound and consistent. So that there's that element to it. Now the tough part with a guy like Aaron Rodgers is if he knows, it goes. If he knows what you're in, he's going to get the ball to the right place. So that can be tough. And you look at who the Colts have played. A bunch of the teams that they've beaten and a bunch of teams they've beaten up on are in the bottom 10 of offenses. This is by far the best passer that they've faced all season. It's by far the best offense they've faced this season. And I'm just curious what Matt's going to try to do to not give Aaron Rodgers those pre-snap looks and pre-snap information.
You live in Cleveland, couple of minutes left. I said with Baker, now that I've seen Tua and Herbert and Josh Allen and Lamar and all these AFC guys, I'm kind of off Baker. I was never a huge fan, but he doesn't size up athletically, arm, size, special. In Cleveland, you live there. What's the feeling? What's the general opinion on Baker this morning?
Look, everybody's so happy here about the Browns' success, and I was doing something at the Department of Motor Vehicles recently, and all they wanted to talk about were the running backs. They weren't necessarily talking about Baker. They were talking about the running game, and that's what they should be talking about. Baker, to me, has upside, but it doesn't look like he has the upside of a lot of the elite quarterbacks that we traditionally talk about. Now, with that running game, being able to build off of play action, being able to slow down the pass rush, I think that's a great situation for him. I don't know if you're ever going to sit back and say, okay, Baker's going to go win X amount of games for us, but I think he can be a middle of the pack to upper middle of the pack productive guy with the right system. And this looks like it's a much better fit for him.
Eric Mangini, when you get out to California again, well, we may not be able to go to a restaurant. They're closing all those too, so maybe stay in Cleveland.
We're going to your house. I hear you talk about all the different steaks that you cook.
Yep, all right. Good talking to you, Coach.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right, age, don't let it define you. mdrivestart.com, one scoop every morning. Lean muscle, proteins, nutrients. mdrivestart.com. Yeah, I told you this week, I want to be friends with Joe Burrow. I'll just say, how can I say this? My people have reached out to his people to be friends. What's so funny about that?
I like how you manifest these things.
Well, I was critical, but I move up.
Remember who was your friend first, Joe? Or we're making friends around here.
We can both be friends with him. But I had my people reach out to his people yesterday.
Well, you have that power.
Well, you can do it too. It's called social media.
But it's a little different if I reach out. That's
right.
You know, yeah.
It's not
like, hey, let's be friends.
It's not like a play date or something. I'd like to be friends. Follow me, and we can converse, and something could happen. I'm very excited for it. I'm waiting for his reply, actually. Good stuff. Warren Moon, Jason McIntyre coming up. We're on the road so much during the holidays. If your warranties run out, please go to carshield.com. Save 10%. It's the warranty when yours runs out. Most cars on the road are not new. They're 3, 4, 5 years old or more. Carshieldcot.com. Code HER 10% off.
I'm Debbie Brown, the host of the Dropping Gems podcast, a podcast about the depth and potential of personal growth. No one's journey is the same as the next, but the magic of being human shows up in the things we have in common. Our capacity for love, pain, joy, sadness, togetherness, and solitude are things that make us perfectly imperfect. And I want to explore with you how we can live our best through it all. The new season of Dropping Gems is available now. Listen to Dropping Gems on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. On September 17th, 2009, 24-year-old Mitrice Richardson disappeared without a trace in the woods near Malibu, California, and was never seen alive again. I'm Catherine Townsend, host of the podcast Hell and Gone. We're going to try to find out what really happened to Mitrice Richardson. School of Humans and iHeartRadio present Hell and Gone Season 3. Listen to Hell and Gone on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, this is Dean Unglert.
And I'm Jared Haven. Together, we host a podcast called Help I Suck at Dating.
Do you suck at dating? No, seriously. Do you suck at dating?
Do you feel like you're always trying to get it right and it just doesn't happen? Join us each week for Help I Suck at Dating. We'll laugh, we'll cry, but we'll get it figured out.
Listen to Help I Suck at Dating on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, and join the Suck Army.
Hi, I'm Holly Fry. And I'm Tracy V. Wilson. And together we host a podcast called Stuff You Missed in History Class, which, as you may suspect by the name, covers some topics that you might not have learned about in school. Maybe you didn't personally miss it, maybe it just wasn't covered. So we talk about lots of women, lots of people of color, lots of people who fit under the LGBTQIA umbrella. We publish episodes every Monday and Wednesday with a mini-sode on Friday and a classic every Saturday. You can find us on the iHeartRadio app, at Apple Podcasts, or wherever it is you listen.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Sunday, another huge doubleheader on Fox starts with Matt Ryan and the Falcons taking on the Saints, followed by Aaron Rodgers and the Packers squaring off with Phillip Rivers and the Colts. Check local listings for the games in your area, only on Fox and the Fox Sports app. Lions-Panthers is featured in this week's free-to-play Super 6 contest, where players have won over $1 million so far this year. All you have to do is correctly predict the outcome of 6 NFL games. So download the Fox Super 6 app and make your picks before kickoff Sunday for your chance to be a millionaire. And for top story scores and more, go to the Fox Sports app. Colin, give us your winner and final score for Lions-Panthers.
27-26. Panthers break their losing streak. They just met a freight train last week in Tampa Bay. The Buccaneers were humiliated, so they hammered Carolina. But Carolina is better than they showed. They've been losing close games. And Detroit, even if they lead for all of the game except a minute, will find a way to make it close. So I'll take Carolina. I think Matt Rule's done a really good job. You don't have to win games to impress me. The Giants, I think, have become a really interesting team. I think Carolina plays really hard. They just have a bunch of kids playing defense. And, you know, you didn't have a preseason, so they got beat on a couple of plays last week. They're just in the wrong spot. It's okay. Warren Moon was a Pro Bowler 9 times. Would have been more, of course, but the Hall of Famer had to go to the Canadian route first, of which he was a 5-time Grey Cup champion and the greatest player in CFL history, and now a Pro Football Hall of Famer is joining us live. So, you know, I say this, I've told you this before, that you were the first great quarterback I saw. I can remember the grainy footage at Husky Stadium. You played the Cougars, driving rainstorm, and you ran around. And it was rare. Like, people did not do that. Husky quarterbacks did not do that. But you weren't running back guy. You were a big guy. You're 6'4". So when you were coming up, take my audience to this. It's 1976, and you're down playing in Los Angeles, and you're a runaround guy. And you probably heard nothing but, well, you know, you can't do that. What was it like being one of the first highly athletic mobile quarterbacks?
You know, it was something that I always cherished, but it was something that was almost like a curse because you got victimized for being a good athlete. They wanted to put you somewhere else, put you in another position, because quarterbacks during that time weren't considered great athletes. They were guys that were going to stand in the pocket and throw the football, and they never were going to move around very much. But I was a guy who could throw the football. That was my strength. But I also had athletic ability enough to move around and be able to do other things. So you got penalized a lot for that because you were too good an athlete.
You know, it's interesting. Russell runs basically when something doesn't work offensively. Kyler runs because that's what they're going to do would you be worried at all about his size and the number of times Kyler does run with the intent of scoring and picking up yards?
You know, I worry about all these young guys who have that athletic ability like Kyler or like a Lamar Jackson because they run the football so much. You know, it's just a matter of time before they take that one big hit. And you saw Kyler the other night, take a big hit on his shoulder, and it probably bothered him the rest of the game. And who knows how serious that injury is. So it's just a matter of time. If you have that ball in your hands too much and too long as a quarterback, the defense is going to get to you.
So one of the biggest games of the week, of course, is Tom Brady against the LA Rams. And the good thing with experience, I mean, there's certain things. Oral Hershiser was a different pitcher later than early. Obviously, he had a surgery. But let's talk Tom Brady. Give me one or two things in your career, your last couple of years, that you still felt you were better at than you were even in your prime.
I think anticipation, that's something that I thought I was good at as I got older because you start to lose some of the sting on your fastball, and you just understand defenses and coverages so much better. You know where the windows are going to be, and that anticipation allows that ball to get in that window when it's supposed to, because you lose a little bit of your athleticism, you lose a little bit of the velocity on your ball, but the anticipation kind of makes up for it. So that was something I really got better at. And just recognizing defenses, I kind of knew what people were going to be in as I walked up to the football, and I was very rarely fooled as I got later in my career.
Tom's got so many weapons right now. He's got 2 good backs, 2 good tight ends, 3 good receivers, actually 4. And I've said that I always feel like if I was a quarterback, I would want to make people happy. I would want everybody to feel included in it. Probably that's why I wouldn't be a good quarterback. Did you ever have a team, Warren, where you felt a little bit of pressure that, okay, I've got a Pro Bowl tight end, I've got to get him 8 targets? Did you ever feel that?
Well, when I played in Houston in the run and shoot, we had 4 wide receivers every down, and I had Haywood Jeffries, I had Ernest Gibbons, I had Drew Hill, I had Curtis Duncan. One year, 3 of those guys made the Pro Bowl with me because I distributed the ball pretty evenly to all those guys, and they were all very successful. And that's what you have to do when you have a lot of different weapons. You have to keep all those guys happy somehow, some way, and they all have different personalities. So there might be a guy that you have to get the ball too early in a ball game to keep him going, and somebody else might not have to see the football until the 3rd quarter, and he's going to be fine. He's still going to run his routes hard. So you just have to understand who your players are, but they're all talented. You just want to make sure they all get the football because they can all help your team.
When you look at all, I want you to go. I've asked Drew Bledsoe this before. So these kids now, Warren, they get 10,000 snaps by the time they're in 8th grade. I mean, they're in camps. So and you guys didn't. If you didn't have the 7-on-7s. So go back to your high school career, because I watched Joe Burrow and I watched Justin Herbert. These kids, they've all been in these camps in Oregon and LA. They come into this league, they got 100,000 snaps. How many snaps do you think you had by the time you got to college football?
You know, I don't know a number, but we did have a passing league that I participated in every year, my last couple of years of high school, but it was nothing compared to what these kids are doing these days. Football is almost a year-round sport now for quarterbacks and receivers because these passing leagues are going on all year, all spring. They also have much better coaching because they have individual coaching at a very young age, and they're just getting much more snaps at it. Like you said, in these camps and also going through high school and college, they're all running the same offenses. Now you see the NFL has adapted to this, and that's why these kids are having so much success coming in early, is because they're doing the same thing in the NFL now that they've been doing since they were in junior high school.
Of all the young quarterbacks, Burrow, Tua, Kyler, Lamar Jackson, is there one or two? I mean, what are your thoughts on all? Is there one or two that you really like?
Man, there's so many good young quarterbacks in this league right now, Colin. It doesn't really matter if it's this new group that just came in with Justin Herbert or Joe Burrow or also Tua, but you also can look at Lamar Jackson. You look at Patrick Mahomes. You look at I can go on and on and on. Deshaun Watson, Kyler Murray. There's just so many good young quarterbacks. So the league is very, very healthy in that regard right now. And these guys are going to be around for a long time, and they're going to break a lot of records.
By the way, I think Jon Gruden's my coach of the year. They didn't have a preseason. He had to move his franchise to a new city. They've had 2 COVID outbreaks. And he, by the way, Derek Carr, before Gruden got there, was a mid-80 quarterback rating. He had like 22 TDs, 13 picks. So obviously Gruden has absolutely helped Derek Carr, who I think is a good talent. I don't think he's a world-class talent. Go back to your career. Was there a coach that you absolutely believed made you a better quarterback at any point in your career?
Well, I had a couple. I think June Jones really helped me when he came to Houston as my quarterback coach. And then Kevin Gilbride came in right after him and took over as offensive coordinator. And my career really took off with these 2 guys. And, you know, you look at the job that Mike Mayock and also Jon Gruden have done in Oakland here over the last 2 or 3 years. They've had some really strong drafts. They're drafting guys from successful college programs that are high character guys. And now they've got some big-time weapons on the outside for Derek Carr to be able to throw the football to in Henry Ruggs and Nelson Aguilar. And that's the difference, I think, in Derek Carr this year. He's pushing the ball down the field. He's getting the big plays where he always was just pretty much a middle-range passer up until this season. Now he's getting the big play possibilities, and that's what's taking his game to another level.
You know, it's funny. Eric Mangini said to me when I was talking earlier today about Russell against Kyler Murray, he goes, the thing is, you'll run around in the league, and then you get a big contract. And he goes, guys don't want to get hit as much. It's no fun when you get hit. And I laugh at that, but I think to myself, go back to your first big contract. I don't blame you at all. Was it more like, you know, I'm gonna slide now. I'm gonna take. Does it change a little when you get the bankroll finally?
Well, you know, when I came into the league, I was the highest paid player, so I felt like I had something to prove when I came in. So I kind of did a little bit of everything, but I was running down the sideline one time into my probably 2nd or 3rd season in Houston and trying to get some extra yards and should have ran out of bounds. And Donnie Shell, who just got inducted into the Hall of Fame, great Pittsburgh Steelers strong safety, he hit me on my hip, and I tell you what, it was the most painful burning sensation I've ever felt playing football. And that day told me, okay, I'm going to start being a distributor now. That guy named Magic Johnson, I want to be just like him as a football player. Let me get the ball to the guys who are used to taking those type of hits.
Yeah, those Pittsburgh Steelers teams could deliver a few blows, including Donnie Shell. I remember that well. Warren, it's great seeing you again.
Always great talking to you, Colin. Take care, my man.
It is funny about getting hit in the NFL. You know, Damian Woody, the offensive lineman, and Warren was. You can YouTube Warren Moon, Washington Huskies Rose Bowl. He looks like Dan Marino. It was in the 70s, and he just threw a stunning football. He could move. If Warren Moon came out today, first of all, he would not only be the number 1 pick, he would be viewed like Trevor Lawrence. Like, he could do big, strong, mobile, huge arm, beautiful throwing motion. Next to Marino, one of the all-time great releases. But he talks about he's running down and a safety hit him. Damian Woody's like 6'5 and a half, 6'6", 320. One time there was an interception, and guys are going the different way. And London Fletcher, who's a linebacker, he was an undersized linebacker for the Washington football team, hit Damian Woody. Now, Warren Moon played at about 215, 218, 220, maybe a little more. Woody's 310. Damian Woody got hit so hard, he went to the sideline and sat down. Just took his helmet on and sat down. And some guy came and tapped him and said, dude, you're on the wrong sideline. This is the Washington sideline. Damian Woody, he goes, I just know I had my helmet, I was sitting down next to people, and a guy came over and said, do you notice the jerseys are different here? You're on the wrong side. So you get tagged in the NFL, and everybody's got a story. Like, you get tagged once. I saw a couple weeks ago, Russell Wilson just got smoked. And I'm like, it takes about 2 of those, and you're like, I'm just going to throw.
Get ready to laugh and learn. I'm Nick Smith.
I am Flamin' Road. I am he, she, we. He cash a check, she make the money, we spend it.
Laugh and Learn is a weekly podcast bringing you the latest headlines.
The infighting within the LGBT community is ridiculous. Baby, let me tell you about that rainbow in the front. Check the back of it. Potholes, thunderstorms, gunshots, all that.
Keeping you politically informed.
Because that's what we do. We wait till the presidency, but we don't think about all the steps that it takes to get to the presidency, which is congressmen and senators and judges and people put in place to think like us and look like us.
Mixed in with a little pop culture.
They ain't went to no Ice Cube. Understand, Ice Cube ain't even got that much juice. He ain't got that much power. This ain't Bad Boys in the Hood. He ain't Dope Boy.
You never know what you're gonna hear.
Don't I look like Beyonce Mama? Don't I look like Beyonce Mama?
Subscribe and listen to Laugh and Learn on the iHeartRadio app or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Personal growth is challenging, but it doesn't have to be hard. When we lean into self-inquiry and self-discovery, we're able to love all the tiny little parts of us, even the pieces we don't want other people to know about. And that's what it's really about, right? Self-love, self-acceptance, self-discovery, excavation, expansion. We are the powerful co-creators of our lives. All we need are the tools to get there. I'm Debbie Brown, the host of the Dropping Gems podcast, a podcast about the depth and potential of personal growth. No one's journey is the same as the next, but the magic of being human shows up in the things we have in common. Our capacity for love, pain, joy, sadness, togetherness, and solitude are things that make us perfectly imperfect. And I want to explore with you how we can live our best through it all. New season of Dropping Gems is available now. Listen to Dropping Gems on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Joy Taylor with the news.
Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
There was one of those moments last night, and Lamar does this too, where with Kyler, where they will wait till the last, just millisecond, centimeter to step out of bounds, and it always gives me so much anxiety because I'm just waiting for them to get absolutely smoked, and then they're right out of bounds.
Kyler made a throw last night. It was incomplete. He threw it. It was an incredible throw. It was his best throw of the night, and it was incomplete. Reed, the Seahawks defensive end, Reed, came around, unblocked. Kyler waited, and the guy's 6 inches taller. Waited a heartbeat before he pounded him, and Kyler threw on his back foot a 35-yard dime into the corner of the end zone. It was his best throw of the night, and I'm like, the courage it takes to know you're going to get smoked by a guy that weighs 70 pounds more than you. You're going to get drilled, and Kyler threw a dime to the corner of the end zone, and it was just broken up or would have tied the game or brought him within one.
We prefer that they not get smoked,
right?
But you are going to at some point.
Oh, of course you are.
So kudos, because it's a different lifestyle. You got to be wired that way. It's like the UFC. Like, you know you're going to get hit. You have to be wired in a way.
Navy SEALs
where you can do that.
UFC fighters, smaller quarterbacks that move. You're going to get smoked.
It's a different lifestyle. So Derek Carr isn't talked about as one of the top quarterbacks in the league, but he has the Raiders in the playoff mix this season with a 6-3 record. And Jon Gruden says Carr is completely focused on proving that he is one of the best.
He's all business. He's on a mission right now to prove that he can be one of the top, if not the best in football. That's what he's after. If you could see him here every day in these circumstances, you'd all be impressed with what he represents. And I couldn't be happier having him as my quarterback.
I love that now. What a budding relationship. What a
I know,
loving...
it's taking a little turn.
It
We weren't really sure if he was all in on him.
No, there was a lot of talk. And now it's, he's like a beaming father. Look at the way he says it. He goes, he'd just be so proud of him.
I do feel for Derek Carr, though, because before the injury, he was in the MVP conversation. He was rolling. And now there's been a lot of questions about him. And to be fair, the Raiders have been very up and down since then as well. But this season, 69.3 completion percentage, 2,156 yards, 16 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and the 5th highest passer rating this season with 107.4.
By the way, the years in which he's played really well, he's had a semblance of a running game. They have a very good running game, and that's okay. By the way, Kirk Cousins wins a lot of games when Dalvin Cook is healthy. And when he's not, Kirk's not as effective. It's okay.
There's really, I'm trying to think of a quarterback. I guess maybe the Patriots, because they kind of or have done a running back by committee at times. Who's a quarterback that doesn't have any semblance of a running game that is able to be successful? We saw last night, as soon as Russell Wilson had some version of a running game, he's able to do what he does.
There's no question. When Aaron Jones is out, I never like the Packers.
No. So who is it? I'm not really. I'm trying to think of one. Like, obviously there are quarterbacks who can make things happen, but not throughout an entire season without a running game.
No, I mean, Bradshaw had one. Aikman had Emmett. I mean, if you go back and look at the great quarterbacks, Dan Fouts had great receivers, but he had a running game. Almost every great quarterback had a running game.
You have to.
3rd and 2 is a lot better to throw than 3rd and 8 for everybody.
Speaking of running game, the Cowboys are having a down year, but so is the NFC East in general. So Dallas still has a chance to make the playoffs at a whopping 2-7, and Ezekiel Elliott says that's one of the many reasons the team is motivated to end their 4-game losing streak.
Not gonna happen.
It is kind of crazy to be 2-7 and still have a chance. No one likes to go out there and lose football games. I think it's been, a month since we won a football game, and that, it sucks. It sucks. So, I mean, we're hungry, and we're going to go figure out how to win.
You know, Ezekiel Elliott was a great high school running back and a great college running back and almost never lost games. And then you go to the NFL and you get into these losing streaks. He's never lost. This is where I get players viewed as a business. It's not during the winning. Like, during the winning, it's like football. It's like high school football.
Right.
Because these guys all came from good high school football programs. But when you're Ezekiel Elliott and you've never lost and you get into the middle of this season and then you're sitting, and I totally get athletes thinking, I'm going to run out of bounds. I'm not going to go for the extra yard. I'm going to run out of bounds and not take a shot. This is a business now. We're not going anywhere.
Well, look at how Joe Burrow is talking about losing. Like, they just asked him, I think it was yesterday we played the clip where they asked him, like, how's he going to measure, like, personal success? And he's like, wins and losses. They're not used to losing. Like, this is not normal.
You know, it's Jay Glazer says this. It's an awful league to work in if you're losing. If you're winning, it's the world's best job.
It's awful. Well, the Eagles play the Browns this week, 1 Eastern on Fox, and the Bengals are at Washington. Cowboys are at the Vikings at 4 Eastern on Fox, and the Giants have a bye. The Eagles are atop the NFC East right now at 3-5-1. Giants 3-7, Washington 2-7, and Cowboys are 2-7.
So, by the way, a lot of the wise guys, the sharps, like the Dallas Cowboys to cover. I would not touch it because I think Minnesota is the best team in the NFL with a losing record. I think the Vikings are going to make the playoffs, and in fact, they're going to be 9-7. 10-6 in a game or two. I think Minnesota's going to go, and I said this 2 weeks ago, on like a 7-week run, 7-0.
Well, they have Dalvin Cook, so that's entirely possible. Earlier this week, Mike Tomlin dismissed the idea that the Steelers weren't taking their game against the one-win Jaguars seriously, and Ben Roethlisberger agreed and said that Jacksonville has always been a tough matchup for Pittsburgh.
We're not worried about anything other than this week. You look at past history of this game, and it hasn't been pretty for us. We're not taking these guys lightly because they've had our number. I know we won the last one barely, but they've come here. I know it's different teams, so it's nothing like that. But you have to understand that this game, in this group, these two guys against each other, these two teams, it's complete focus.
What is going on at these press conferences? What is going on in the background? There is chaos. The Steelers are 5-6 against the Jags, including 0-2 in the postseason since Roethlisberger entered the league.
That's so weird.
So he's not wrong.
The Packers, that Packer game was. I sat and watched it on a third TV. With a sound down, and I'm like, okay, Green Bay just didn't want to play. I mean, it was like shockingly competitive.
Well, the Steelers they're not going to breeze over this matchup. They keep talking about it, and I mean those numbers are facts. So the last matchup was November of 2018. Steelers won 2016, but they trailed by 10 late in the fourth quarter. Roethlisberger ran for the game-winning touchdown with 5 seconds left. So it's a big-time matchup for the Steelers against the one-win Jaguars this week.
It is. Joy Taylor with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie
Jason
News.
McIntyre's NFL picks. Love it. Coming up next and best for last.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
I'm Mandy B, former accountant turned podcaster and founder of my own subscription box company. I'm Wheezy, former tech exec, now podcaster, comedy writer, and I make up half of the Horrible Decisions podcast. We combine comedy, raunchiness, all in effort to destigmatize kinks and normalize conversations that are normally taboo, like sex, dating, and relationships. Make sure you tune in this Monday so you can hear conversations like these. He sets up the phone, he bends over in the... Do y'all want to see it?
No.
We have never suggested cheating, bro. So I'm not going to tell her to cheat on this man. Other
asking. I don't want no beef on horrible decisions. Maybe that was a horrible decision to ask that question.
Wait. Join us every Monday on the iHeart app, the #1 place for podcasts. And don't forget to search Horrible Decisions. That's WHOREIBLE Decisions on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
You know exactly where you were when the Golden State Killer was arrested. You still pay for cable to get Lifetime. You're a moderator on the Zodiac Killer subreddit. You're basically a seasoned detective, and you're in search of a new challenge. Enter Solve, the hit podcast that puts you at the center of the investigation. Each week on Solve, you will untangle a case that has pushed detectives to their limits. Solve is like no other murder mystery podcast. You'll piece together evidence from interrogations, crime scenes, and witness testimony to track down killers hiding in plain sight. Your cases are waiting for you. New episodes of Solve are available now on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. One crime, 4 suspects. Can you solve it?
RecTech's more than a grill, it's a lifestyle. Check it out, rectech.com, RECTEQ.com. Built by grillers for grillers. Jason McIntyre has the Straight Fire with Jason McIntyre podcast every morning on iHeartRadio, and he is now joining me live. He likes gambling, so do I. So I had a good week. You had a good week, too.
Yeah, I'm in that $1.4 million contest, climbing the charts. I'm in the top 175 out of 3,000 people. I'm putting in the work, buddy. And if it delivers, I'm going to get on your level soon. My wife tells me we need a wine cellar like Cowherd, so,
All right, we call it Tomorrow's Headlines Today. What will the headlines be tomorrow? Titans at the Ravens. What do you got?
Fascinating game. We've been on the Ravens slide for a little while, right, Colin?
Yep.
The headline will be Laction Jackson. Lamar Jackson in Baltimore really struggling. And again, we've been hammering away at this. And then last week in the monsoon, they did not look good in New England. Even if you don't want to kill them for that, we know that they're struggling to stop the run. Patriots, 173 yards on the ground last week. Calais Campbell injured, maybe out. Brandon Williams, nose tackle, probably out. And we know the Titans, they run the football more than Rudy Giuliani's hair dye runs down his face. Okay? Derrick Henry, second in the league in rushing. This guy is licking his chops for another. He had 182 on the ground last year in the playoffs against these Ravens. I think they run the football and win this game outright as big 6-point underdogs.
Yeah, it's an interesting game. I stayed away from that, but it is interesting. When you can run against the Ravens, you take a lead, and that is where Lamar struggles. So that's their problem now, is they're falling behind in games, and they weren't a year ago. They just weren't. All right, tomorrow's headlines today. I stayed away from this one. Dolphins at the Broncos. The line freaked me out. I think Miami should be favored by way more. It scared me. What do you got?
Certainly. I know Joy's loving this Dolphins run. Just an amazing streak. 5-0 against the spread in the last 5 weeks. The headline will be Tua hot to handle. I'm still riding that Tua train, Colin. Listen, this is the best first half team in the NFL this year. Wow. Highest point differential. And again, Denver Broncos. I mean, listen, Drew Lock is a joke at quarterback. 4 interceptions and a fumble. 55% completions this year. Broncos fans are tweeting at me, Jay, we need Tim Tebow back. Okay, he's more accurate than Drew Lock. This Broncos team is a mash unit. This is the stat that scared me. Last week against the Raiders were down both starting tackles. The Broncos did not have one hit on the quarterback. Wow. Okay, not one. And if you're not going to pressure Tua, I don't know how you're beating them. I do think Tua could struggle at altitude. His first maybe cold weather game, it's going to be like in the 40s. So low scoring, but I think Joy's Dolphins win again. I think they're winning the AFC East.
Yeah, it is. It's a really good point. Tackles were out. Drew Lock is. It's amazing. If you can't complete 62% in this league at this point in the NFL, you're just not. I mean, I got it 25 years ago. Like right now in the NFL, it is made to complete 62%. All right, tomorrow's headlines today. Packers and the Colts. I like the Colts here. You?
Yes, I like the Colts early in the week, but then I saw some things, and the headline will be Rodgers sends Rivers packing. I'm going with Green Bay here. A little bit of a change of heart on my part, and a lot of it has to do with Devontae Adams. Looks like he's going to be okay. He missed practice Thursday. Alan Lazard is returning, okay? He's been out since week 3. We last saw him torching the Saints secondary at like a $150 through the air. Here's the number, okay? Aaron Rodgers has struggled a bit at times this year, but he's played 3 games in dome stadiums, okay? 12 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 73% completions, okay? That is a little bit scary, and if you look at the Colts, you're like, their defense is great. Okay, I get that. But who have they faced? Colin, the best quarterbacks they've faced? Kirk Cousins? And that was in week 2 or 3. And then Ryan Tannehill. This is a big step up in class against Aaron Rodgers. I just have a weird feeling that the Packers come out and are like, hey, we saw the Seahawks win. We saw their schedule. We've got to keep pace. We want that number 1 seed. I think the Packers here dominate. And the matchup to watch, Colin, okay, Xavier Rhodes is the best cornerback for the Colts, right? Playing great. Where was he before this? He was in Minnesota, and the Packers dominated him. Devontae Adams head-to-head just destroyed Xavier Rhodes. You can look up the numbers. I think the Packers open a can here and really have a strong performance against the Colts.
Good stuff. Tomorrow's headlines today. Chiefs looking for revenge at the Raiders.
Ooh, this is a fun one. Now, Colin, I want to preface this. Be careful, everybody. The headline will be... Chiefs take a victory lap down the strip. Oh, yeah, cruising down the strip. Now, this is a big revenge game, right? Pat Mahomes' only loss this year, only interception came against the Raiders.
Wow.
And everybody knows Jon Gruden, after the game, took the buses on a victory lap around Arrowhead. I had Brent Musburger on my podcast this week, and he's an announcer for the Raiders. He was telling me about this, and he's like, listen, the Raiders have some good matchup opportunities here. And then you see the COVID list, and Cleveland Farrell, their best defensive lineman, pressured Mahomes 9 times in that earlier meeting. He's out. Their slot cornerback, he's out. And you start to look at it, you're like, oh boy. Revenge game, Andy Reid 18-3 off of a bye straight up. Colin, I can't make a case for the Raiders here. I do think the Chiefs win big in Vegas.
Yeah, the line was tastier earlier in the week. It was 6.5, now 8.5. But I still think with Mahomes, 8.5 doesn't scare me.
And remember that the total for this game, 56.5, which proves once again that everybody scores in Las Vegas. Everyone.
Tomorrow's headlines today, finally. Rams and Tom Brady and the Bucs.
Tremendous game, Monday Night Football. Maybe we'll get together if the governor of California allows it. We'll watch this game. The headline will be Brady stays up past bedtime to beat the Rams. And listen, Tom Brady's primetime woes this year, they're a thing, Colin. Okay? 3 primetime games. I know you and Joy touched on it this week. They haven't covered the spread in either of them. And then I started to read about Tom Brady. We know he's psychotic about his diet. This is a guy who goes to bed at 9 o'clock at night. I'm not even making this up. Okay, 9 o'clock bedtime. He takes naps during the day. So what does Bruce Arians do this week? We're holding practice at 8 o'clock at night, just so you guys don't have a big screw up here against the Rams. And I do think finally the Bucs break through. Quick word on the Rams, and we talked about this with Carissa Thompson on Monday. This Andrew Whitworth injury is massive for the Rams. Heart and soul of that team. Veteran left tackle. What do the Bucs do better than almost anybody in the league? Blitz the quarterback, bum rush with those great linebackers. I think Goff could be in for a long night. I'm taking the Bucs here to win at home on Monday Night Football.
Fox Sports Radio tomorrow. Jason will be on 10 to 1 Eastern. It's always a really well-prepared show. J-Mac, it's good seeing you as always, buddy.
All right, you too, man.
So we both like the Chiefs. We both like the Bucs. He went in on the Dolphins. You know, the Dolphins one makes me think I should have taken it. But sometimes, I've said this before, once or twice a year, I will see a number in Vegas and go, I don't get it, and it was the Dolphins number. And I said to you, Denver's got a backup quarterback, and it's a 3.5 point spread. It should be a 6-7 point spread, and you would think I would run to it. But I've been burned so many times thinking I know more than Vegas. So Vegas is telling you this is going to be a close game. My initial reaction is this is going to be dominating performance by Miami.
I think the Dolphins will still play well, but they're probably just thinking it's just first time playing in elevation.
And cold.
And it's cold, yes.
Tua played high school football in Hawaii, and then college football in the South. Not a lot of cold games. This is it. And then he plays in Miami. It's like, so it is a thing.
Yeah, it'll be a good test. I still think they'll win.
By the way, I don't think it's that crazy going to bed at 9. In the winter, when it gets dark, I start yawning at about 8:30.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm ready for bed at like 6. It's so dark here. I used to go to bed at 9 every day when I was on Undisputed.
And I take naps too. What's wrong with naps?
I think sleep is very important.
My cat last night right next to my right ear.
Your animals seem wild.
Oh, I live at a safari at the north end of the zoo. All right, good stuff. Michelin Endurance XT silicone wiper blades, real world, proven for extreme weather performance. They're at Walmart only, last 2 times longer than other blades. Have so much fun this weekend. Be safe, please. Speak for Yourself is around the corner for Joy and John and everybody. Live in LA, it's been The Herd.
Ever wondered why there are 2 ways to spell donuts? Or why some people think you can find water underground just by wandering around with a stick? Believe it or not, this is stuff you should know. You Know the podcast with over 1 billion listens. It's now for your eyes, so you can read it. Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, covers everything from the origin of the Murphy bed to why people get lost. Pre-order at StuffYouShouldKnow.com or wherever books are sold.
Get ready to laugh and learn. I'm Nick Smith.
I am Flamin' Road. I am he, she, we. He cash a check, she make the money, we spend it.
Laugh and Learn is a weekly podcast bringing you the latest headlines, keeping you politically informed, mixed in with a little pop culture. You never know what you're going to hear. Subscribe and listen to Laugh and Learn on the iHeartRadio app or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts.